Thousands of years ago there were 5 Omega Rangers, which were red, yellow, blue, black, and gold. This is different from what we know today, since now there are only 4, since the gold color is not there, and the existence of a gold Omega Ranger had never been known until now. We are going to focus on 2 Omega Rangers in this story, the gold and the blue. These 2 Omega Rangers were friends, but they were 2 very different beings from different planets. The Gold Ranger comes from a planet that does not understand death, since for them it does not exist. This does not mean that they are immortal, but rather that when a person dies, they say that their journey in life is over. This is because when a person dies, their soul joins a collective consciousness which they call the legacy. When these souls join this collective consciousness, what happens is that all the people who remain alive can hear all the dead in their minds, and that is why they do not understand death, since they continue to hear the voice of the person who died. Imagine you have a person you love and then they die, but you can still have a conversation in your mind with that person. This is not similar to the imagination, since we ourselves control everything there. This is different, since the deceased person is really going to respond to you. It's basically like you're on the phone with the dead, since you can't see their body, but you can hear their voice and have a conversation. It is also how these beings on this planet live with dead people inside their minds, and that is why they do not understand death or loneliness. The Gold Omega Ranger, called Spark, was suffering since being very far from his planet, he could not hear the voices of this collective conscience. It was the first time he felt loneliness, although he really wasn't alone, since he lived with the other Rangers. For him it was a different loneliness, since he was used to hearing all these people in his head, and now he didn't hear anything. His friend, the Blue Ranger, tried to cheer him up and explain that he really wasn't alone, that there was a lot of life around them, but even so Spark couldn't understand this. At that moment a giant enemy attacked them and killed the Blue Ranger before she could transform. At first Spark did not feel the death of his friend and never cried, since he thought that her soul was going to connect to the collective consciousness, and he was going to be able to continue connected to her. Obviously, this didn't happen, since she was from another planet, and little by little Spark began to get depressed because it was the first time he had that feeling of emotional pain. All Rangers deal with pain in different ways, but Spark wanted to find a solution to that pain. After a few days the Rangers had to stop a monster that was similar to a giant mouth, but it was really a portal that led to the darkest with a lot of knowledge. This monster told Spark that it could help him with his problem, so Spark got closer than anyone ever had. The Rangers were able to defeat the monster and lock it up, but it was too late. With the dark knowledge that Spark had found in that portal, he began to experiment with the energy of the Morphin grid. With this energy he could give life to everything that was already dead, but Spark did not understand the consequences of this. After supposedly mastering this energy, he quickly went to the Blue Ranger's grave to revive her. The other Rangers noticed this and quickly went looking for him, but it was too late. Spark had revived the Blue Ranger. Even though she was alive, the Blue Ranger seemed like a lifeless puppet that Spark was simply controlling with the new power. Spark was happy because her friend was alive, but the other Rangers tried to explain to her that this was wrong since she should be dead. That was her place now and she had to learn to accept it. Spark refused to accept the death of his friend, so the Black Ranger began to treat him like any other threat from space and attacked him. At that moment the Blue Ranger attacked the Black Ranger since Spark was controlling her. After this, Spark woke up all the dead that were buried in that same place and he could control them all. The Omega Rangers had to transform to start fighting with all these living skeletons controlled by Spark, which now becomes the Death Ranger. Even though Spark was able to control the dead, he couldn't fully control the Blue Ranger, who broke free and started attacking Spark. In that moment of weakness, all the other dead broke free as well, started chasing Spark, seized his blaster, and shot him. With this shot, all the connection of the new power vanished and the Blue Ranger was sorry for what had happened since that was not what she wanted. Again, she started to die as she was only alive due to the Death Ranger's power, but at the same time Spark also started to die. When Spark died, his soul was seeking to join the collective consciousness like all the people on his planet, but being away from his planet, his soul couldn't connect to the collective consciousness. Because of this, her soul was attached to the Morpher since it was the only thing that could keep her, and then the Omega Rangers hid this Morpher. After the destruction of the command center, after the Eltarian War, Kimberly, Rocky, Adam, Aisha, Billy, Tommy, Alpha 5 and Zordon are in the headquarters. We can see that the whole command center was smashed to pieces and the Rangers are a bit worried, except Rocky, who already started to pick up and clean up the whole place. If you saw the destruction of the command center in the TV series, then you know that it has a place underground that is more protected. Zordon explains that the place below is called the power chamber and it is the place that allows the Rangers to connect to the Morphin grid. The upstairs part of the command center that we have always known is important as well, as it was for communication, surveillance and protection of the power chamber. Without that top part, then the Rangers are exposed, and anyone can attack them so they can't reconnect to the Morphin grid. Although we all thought, including the Rangers, that there was only one command center in the entire universe, Zordon and Alpha 5 explained that it was a basic Eltarian command center and there are many just like it. Because of this, the Rangers decide to travel into space in search of another command center since without such a place the Earth is in danger. Zordon states that even though Lord Zed helped them in the previous war, he still seeks the destruction of the Power Rangers. Rocky returns home to talk to his mother and she tells him that she needs him to stay home to take care of his siblings since she must travel, otherwise she will lose her job. Rocky tries to make excuses that he has a school trip since he knows they must travel to space to find the command center. At that moment Rocky's sister arrives very surprised as if something was happening with the moon. When they all look up at the sky, they realize the moon was disappearing. But Rocky says that's a problem for the next day. In Promethea we can see Grace, the first Red Ranger and creator of the Terra Venture ship, repairing the place and receives a call from Dr. Zaskin, who confirms that the moon did not disappear, but was camouflaged. Then inside Promethea we can see Zordon, Billy and Tommy, who went looking for help, and tell Grace that they need her protection as the power chamber is at risk. They also asked her for an Elter ship and 10,000 megawatts. Grace agrees to help them since the Green Ranger, who is not Tommy, comes from Promethea, and he also needs the Morphin grid to access his powers. On the ship, Tommy and Aisha are getting ready, then Rocky arrives and tells them that he won't be able to go on the trip. Rocky thought he was going to disappoint the others, but they are relieved as they were planning for a ranger to stay and guard the power chamber along with Promethea's workers, so Rocky agrees to be the last line of defense. The ship takes off, and quickly, without wasting time, Rocky is attacked by robots that only had his face, a tire and arms with laser weapons. These robots are different in that they can learn from their mistakes and continue to be better warriors. Rocky transforms and begins to destroy as many robots as he can, but they start to become too many for him alone. As Rocky tries to attack, another robot blasts him with a laser beam from behind and knocks him to the ground. One of the robots sends a message with a request asking if he should neutralize or eliminate him, but he is given the order to eliminate Rocky. At that moment, a green lightning bolt explodes all the robots that were around. At that moment, Matthew Cook arrives, the Green Ranger who works with Promethea, who also wants to defend the power chamber. Rocky is very worried and hurt. He tells Matthew that the other Rangers have already left, and he is afraid that the robots will return, but Matthew tells him that he is not alone. One of the robots continues to send images to its owner, which is King Aridin, and he sent the robots to confirm the destruction of the command center. Now the king knows that the command center is destroyed and vulnerable, that Lord Zed has retreated from the site, and that most of the Rangers are off-planet. This is the perfect opportunity to conquer Earth and destroy the Power Rangers forever, along with their source of connection on Earth. King Aridin is the worst enemy of King Mondo, the leader of the Machine Empire. King Aridin is briefly mentioned in Power Rangers Zeo, but his major appearance is in the comics. Back on the ship, Alpha 5 gathers all the Rangers, although he feels strange doing so without Zordon. Alpha tells them that he found a planet that was once inhabited by Eltarians, but they left 30 years ago. This gives the Rangers the advantage that they can find a command center without having to battle anyone and fight a battle they can't win. This planet is called Aegis 5, which is covered entirely with water. This means that the command center they are looking for is underwater, which presents a greater challenge for the Rangers. The most difficult part of the situation is that the command center is not at shallow depth, but is far away from the surface, which makes it even more difficult to get there and even more difficult to take the command center. At this point in the story, the Imperial's threat is over, the blue emissary is missing, and Robot 11 is out of commission. Omega Rangers Jason, Zach, Trini and Yale are in Safe Haven, which is a safe place at the point of eternity. Now without the blue emissary, the Rangers must find a way to work alone. Jason searches the computer for signals to find Lord Draken and his ship, but the computer tells him that there is nothing. Still, Jason keeps faith that he will find him. At the lab, Trini is still working tirelessly to try to repair 11 and is on video call with Billy to try to help her by telling her what to do. Even so, Billy's advice is still not working as he is relying on the workings of Alpha 5. They both manage to turn 11 on, but apparently, she has no memories and that doesn't work for them. In a secret room full of weapons are Zack and Archon, a respected elder in Safe Haven who has a direct connection to the Morphin grid. They both realize that someone has stolen a weapon and Archon tells Zack that more things have gone missing recently. Zack acknowledges that it is a place with a lot of inhabitants, but still asks Archon if he has any suspects in mind and Archon says yes. Zack goes in search of that suspect, which is Kever, a Hartunian who was stealing fruit at the time. Zack gives him a chance to return the weapon he stole without having to do it the hard way, but Kever throws the fruit in his face and flees. After a quick chase, Kever hides and Zack thinks he lost him, but surprisingly manages to catch him. Although Kever continues to deny that he is the thief of the gun, Zack continues to insist and tells him that if he doesn't take him to where the gun is he will lock him up for several centuries. Back at the lab, Trini keeps trying to bring 11's memories back, but nothing has worked. Even 11 can talk and do everything normally, but it's like it's a new system. At that moment, Trini gets a call from Billy, who was running a diagnostic on 11's entire system, but everything was normal. The only thing he could find is that a user was blocking 11's memories. Trini is confused since she didn't do it and knows that Jason or Zack wouldn't know how to do that. Then, the unexpected happens. 11 tells Trini that he is blocking his own memories as she had told him that he has seen many terrible things, worlds destroyed and many people who have lost their lives. Because of this 11 doesn't want to have to think about all that again and tells Trini that he doesn't need all those memories to be a good Omega Ranger's assistant. This is 11's final decision, and he tells Trini that if he can't respect that then he should pull the plug. Elsewhere, Jason continues to work with the computer searching for the Wraith 2 ship and Lord Draken, but the computer tells him it has found nothing. At that moment Yale enters chasing a flying jellyfish and interrupts the search and the computer setup. Yale runs off to the roof of the place and Jason goes after him and notices everything that Yale has destroyed. He then climbs up to the roof very angry and is amazed at all the flying jellyfish he sees in the sky. Continuing with Zack, Kever and Archon, they go in search of the stolen weapon and Kever directs them to where he lives now as he says his parents died in Hartunia and he was forced to travel and was abandoned in Safe Haven. Unfortunately, no one wanted another mouth to feed, and they passed Kever from family to family until he found that place where he lives now. When they arrive, Kever tells them that inside is the gun and asks them to find it and leave him alone. When they enter the house, they realize that Kever had stolen more things than they had thought. We can even see that there is a king's crown, an Eltarian warrior's helmet, and even a Red Ranger's helmet. At that moment, Kever appears with the weapon and threatens them as he says he must be prepared when the beings that destroyed their planet arrive. Zack and Archon tell him that he is safe there as the Imperials no longer exist. They start fighting and Kever starts telling Zack that the Omega Rangers are the only thing holding Safe Haven together. If the Omega Rangers leave, then people are going to start fighting each other and form a war for power. Kever gives Zack a hard blow and tells him that he has nothing left to do but survive in that place. At that moment, Archon takes a swing at Kever and takes away his weapon to save Zack. Kever thought that Archon would take his life, but surprisingly he tells him his story and tells him that when he arrived on that planet, he had nothing because of the Hartunians, and yet he decided to make Safe Haven his home and swore to protect it. Besides that, he tells him that he cannot protect the planet alone and needs help. Then, Archon extends his hand and offers him a home and a purpose to live. After that, the 4 Omega Rangers meet at the computer site and begin to talk about the future of the Omega Rangers and the other planets. Trini tells Jason that he must change since he has spent every day and every hour on the computer looking for Draken, and they must leave the past behind and focus on other things and other worlds that need the Omega Rangers. Surprisingly, Jason agrees with Trini and tells her that Yale helped him realize everything he was missing. Then, the Omega Rangers start sending a message to all the planets in the universe to tell all the inhabitants that they are not alone and that the Omega Rangers are going to protect the weak and warn the villains that they are not going to continue abusing the weak. In one of those worlds, we can see Andrus, the Red Ranger from in space, but in another world, we can see the followers of Vox, a powerful villain who had already had problems with the Omega Rangers. These villains were destroying a planet and sacrificing the inhabitants when they received the message and decided to track the signal to know the exact location of the Rangers because they want their revenge. After Zordon was at Promethea asking Grace for help, he now returns to the command center, which we know is destroyed. Promethea employees are cleaning up the place to get everything ready before the Rangers find a new command center. After a bit of a bumpy ride, Zordon arrives at his destination. Matthew the Green Ranger greets him and opens the doors. One of Promethea's employees helps move Zordon's tube out of the truck but drops it in a very silly way. The Green Ranger gets upset with the Promethea employee and Zordon thanks him for all his help. But Matthew is still upset with Zordon since he had previously told him that he was going to take the power coin from him. Zordon and Promethea's relationship has never been very good, and this is why he doesn't have a good relationship with Grace and Matthew. Because of this, Zordon talks to Grace and thanks her for all the help, plus he also apologizes for all the things he has said and done. Grace does not receive the apology very well, even though she has been waiting for many years for Zordon to apologize to her. Now we can see Matthew from a very high place talking on a cell phone with Rocky, and we can see the place surrounded by a force field to protect the power chamber. This force field is created with the help of the Megazords because even though they are damaged, they still work to channel the energy. In their conversation, Matthew realizes that Rocky is a bit busy, and it is because he is taking care of his siblings and Matthew offers to help him. In Aegis 5, the Rangers are looking for the command center, which is underwater, and somehow they have oxygen thanks to the Morphin grid. The Rangers are divided into two teams. Team 1 are Tommy, Adam and Aisha. They are swimming through several caves to try to get some access to the inside of the command center and find out if there is anything dangerous inside. Team 2 consists of Billy and Kimberly, who are searching for the exact location of the command center from above. Team 1 mysteriously finds a cave full of alien eggs, which they find to be mysterious because, if there are eggs, then there may be life on that supposedly abandoned planet. Now Team 2 was able to find the exact location of the command center, but Team 1 is still suspicious that there is something fishy going on as the mission is going too easy. At that moment, the Rangers are surrounded by an alien species from that planet, who don't look so happy that the Rangers are invading. Back on Earth at Rocky's house, all his siblings are getting ready to leave for another location and are waiting for a special guest. It should be noted that Rocky's family obviously doesn't know that he is a Power Ranger. At that moment, someone knocks on the door, and when they open it, it is the Green Ranger coming to take them all to another place. Back on Aegis 5, the Rangers begin to fight with the inhabitants of that planet, who are very angry because they think that the Rangers are Eltarians coming to invade and enslave them. The Rangers were looking for the command center, which is a surveillance center created by Eltarians, and in addition to this, they also arrived at that planet in an Eltarian ship, and it is because of this that the inhabitants of the planet think that the Rangers are from Eltar. Aisha manages to stop the fight and tells the planet's leader that they are not from Eltar and that they only came to look for the command center. Unfortunately, for the Rangers, that command center is what is protecting the eggs of these inhabitants, so they are never going to let them take the command center. Even so, Aisha convinces them to let them enter the command center to look for information about the location of other command centers for them to travel to those other planets, and the planet's leader only allows Billy and Aisha to enter. On the way inside the command center, the leader tells them that the Eltarians offered them many things in exchange for them to join their troops, supposedly for peacekeeping, but in reality, it was for wars. Because of this, this planet was almost extinct, and this made the Eltarians leave. This is why the inhabitants of this planet hid, so that the Eltarians would continue to think that there is no life there. When they arrived inside the command center, we can see that there is a giant bubble that protects the offspring of these aliens, and the leader of the planet tells the Rangers to look for everything they need because this will be the last time someone will enter that place. While Billy begins to look for coordinates of other command centers, Aisha tells him that she has never seen him worried about losing his powers, but Billy tells her that he has never been worried about that. He is worried about losing his friends and sees the world in a different way, because when he sees places like that planet, he can realize that there is something bigger than power weapons and Zords. On Earth now is Matthew, Rocky and his family at the site of the old command center, one of the twins is talking to Zordon and asking him very uncomfortable questions as he asks him about where his arms are. Rocky, very embarrassed, goes to find him quickly and acts as if he has never met Zordon, as his family doesn't know he is a ranger. Inside the offices is Rocky's sister, and he meets Grace. She starts to tell him that Grace has a lot of money and wants some advice on how she can make it too. At that moment, when Grace goes to tell her, they start to feel a strong wind, and it is that a strange ship was coming to the place. Grace leaves the conversation halfway through and goes out to investigate what was going on. She asks Dr. Zaskin about the ship and who is driving it, but the doctor tells her that he finds no signs of life. This confused Grace a lot, and the most confusing thing is that the doctor also tells her that this is contradictory, since from the ship they sent a message saying that the new ruler of planet Earth has arrived, and he expects us to have prepared a proper throne. At that moment, we can see King Aridin and his servants get off the ship, who want to conquer the Earth, taking advantage of the fact that Lord Zed and the Rangers are not there, besides the fact that the Earth is vulnerable without the command center. Back in Safe Haven are the Omega Rangers, but while Zack and Trini are sleeping, Jason and Yale are training hard. Then, when Jason arrives back at the house, Zack and Trini are already awake, but a little cranky as they are still tired. While Jason prepares his breakfast, he tells the Rangers that they should enjoy this paradise because they can do whatever they want, without lies and without hiding their identity, but Trini only thinks that they still have a big responsibility because they must protect the universe. Now, the Rangers go to the Point of Eternity and talk to 11 to know if they received any response from the message they had sent to all the planets. The Rangers receive responses from 2 different planets. On the first one there is no sign of life, and it can only be a ship that was stranded on that planet. The second response comes from planet KO-35 and is an urgent emergency signal, as there are attacks with large weapons all over the planet. The Rangers decide to split up in order to travel to the 2 planets, so first, it's Morphin time. On the first planet, which is located in the Mindrose system, we can see Zack and Trini looking for the emergency signal, but it takes them a while to find the ship that is emitting this signal. We can see that the ship they found is destroyed, and the Rangers feel that this could be a trap. Because of this, Trini decides to enter the ship alone, so Zack stays outside watching. Inside the ship, Trini realizes that the signal was disabled and there are only dead bodies. She also tells Eleven that the escape pod is gone, which means someone had to use it and may still be nearby and need help. Zack is outside the ship and finds the engine, but realizes that it is unstable and could explode at any moment. Suddenly, a loud noise is heard outside the ship, which scares Trini very much. At that moment, a giant winged monster appears, probably the one that destroyed the ship, and wants to attack the Rangers, but they invoke the Omegazord power. Now in the second emergency location, on planet KO-35, Jason and Yale are looking for the problem. Jason thinks that there was a big war going on there, many lives were lost, and apparently the Rangers were too late. At that moment, Yale can smell that something bad is happening, and Jason feels that they walked right into an ambush. Suddenly, Aliens called the Zuriks appear, and they are looking for a ranger, but they recognize that Jason is not the ranger they are looking for. Still, they threaten him and tell him that if Jason goes with them then Yale won't suffer when they eat him. The battle begins and Jason tells Zuriks that he always tells Yale to hold back, but this time he won't tell him anything. In the middle of the battle Jason asks what they did to the planet, and they tell him that they ate everyone and it's the same thing they do to all the planets. While the Rangers are still fighting, we can see someone hiding in the shadows watching everything. Back in Mindro, the Rangers are fighting with their Omegazords against the ferocious giant beast, and no matter how many blows they have given it, the beast is still going forward very angry. Trini decides to tie the beast with chains and throw it towards the ship. Because the ship's engine was unstable, everything explodes, and the Rangers manage to finish off the monster. After that hard battle, 11 tells the Rangers that he found the escape pod of the ship that had just exploded. The Rangers go to the location and manage to find the capsule, but when they open it, they get a big surprise. Inside the capsule is an alien baby. In KO 35, the Rangers are still fighting with the Zuriks, and after so much arguing, in the end only one of the aliens is left. This last alien tries to run, but suddenly he is attacked with a laser beam and Jason gets scared since he was not the one who launched the laser beam. The one who launched the beam was the same one who was watching the battle from the shadows hiding, and tells the Rangers that they must leave before more aliens arrive. Still, Jason demands that he needs to know who it is, so the person takes off his hood, and to everyone's surprise it is Andrus, the Red Ranger from in space. At this point in the story, Jason does not know Andrus, and for those who do not know Andrus should know that Andrus comes from the planet KO 35, and that is why he calls the Omega Rangers to this planet to help him save what is left. Back at Safe Haven, the Rangers took the baby to the lab to verify that all was well. The capsule had the baby asleep in a deep sleep, and 11 says it may be many hours or many days before she wakes up. One very important detail that 11 says is that the baby's metabolic system is very fast. Then, Zach and Trini have a call with Jason. They talk about what is going on with the baby and that the computer records have no information on the species of that alien. They also ask Jason if he needs help, but he tells them that Andrus told him that no ship can go in as it may alert enemies. Zach and Trini are worried as they don't know who Andrus is and ask Jason to be careful. Then, as Zach and Trini talk about the baby's future and how they are going to have to take care of him since he has no one, 11 interrupts them and tells them that they need to go to the infirmary fast. Zach and Trini freak out and ask about the baby's health, but 11 tells them that his health is fine, but there is another situation they need to look at. The supposed baby has woken up and is no longer a baby. Apparently its metabolic system is so fast that the growth of this alien is accelerated. On Earth, everyone is protected in the force field, and King Eridan starts his attack to try to destroy the force field, but he doesn't manage to do anything about it. King Eridan talks about King Mondo, the leader of the Machine Empire, and says that he is going to steal his place in the Dark Specter group. Inside the force field, Matthew tries to convince the others by saying that he should go out to stop the attack, but Zordon and Grace tell him that if the force field holds out then he should stay inside until the other Rangers arrive. Grace tries to explain to him that if he sends him out to stop the attack, it would be unnecessary since the shield is holding up so well. Because of the whole situation, Rocky decides to take his brothers to the power chamber, so they don't have to see everything that is going on. After so much time attacking the shield, King Aridin decides to use a more powerful weapon to destroy the force field but decides to continue attacking with the other weapons even though they are not working, just to make everything more dramatic. In the power chamber, Rocky is with his brothers and sisters. At that moment Matthew arrives and tries to talk a little with the kids to get them to think about something else. He also asks Rocky to talk and tells him that he is coming out, and even though Rocky offered his help, Matthew refused as he knows that Zordon has a rule that no ranger can reveal his identity and Rocky's family would know. Before Matthew goes out to fight, Zordon tells him that he was wrong in his choices as Matthew is just like Tommy. Zordon did not choose him to be a Power Ranger, yet both have been able to be good Rangers. In addition to this, Zordon shows his support for him to be a Ranger. The other Rangers are now on the planet Leonis, a planet located in the Lion Galaxy, where they have a hidden command center, and the king of this planet has in his body the device that makes the command center undetectable. The king is going to have a party and the Rangers must enter and be near the king for 4 minutes in order to deactivate the device with another device invented by Billy. At the party, Aisha and Tommy must go in, but Adam and Kimberly must go into a security tower to disable the satellites that prevent the Rangers from transporting the command center to Earth. Billy says that Alpha 5 must go with Aisha and Tommy to the party as he must help them disable the security system in order to get inside, and then he will provide support inside. Tommy disagrees with this idea as Alpha is known throughout the galaxy and that would give them away. Alpha 5 replies that he has a disguise, but Tommy still doesn't want Alpha to go with them. On Earth, King Aridin meets the Green Ranger and thinks he is Tommy when he was still Rita's servant. The king tells the Green Ranger that if he allows him to destroy everything and torture Zordon for many years then perhaps he will spare his life. The Green Ranger makes it clear to him that he is not Tommy, and he does not accept this request as well, and then the battle begins. We can clearly see that the king is very powerful and starts to beat up Matthew. On planet Leonis, Aisha and Tommy are at the palace where the king is going to have the party and realize that they can't enter through the main entrance, so they decide to enter through the hard way. When they manage to get in, they steal the costumes of other guests, and at that moment the king is talking to his guests. Tommy interrupts him and tries to have a conversation with him, but the king realizes that Tommy doesn't know anything about what he is talking about, so he starts asking him questions suspecting that Tommy shouldn't be at that party. At that moment, Tommy is saved by Alpha 5 who mysteriously managed to enter the party disguised as a stylist. Back on Earth, the Green Ranger continues to battle, and inside the shield, Rocky, Grace, and Dr. Zaskin try to find a solution to help Matthew. King Aridin and his entire army are robots, so Rocky has the idea that maybe they can shut them down like any other electronic device. Dr. Zaskin has the idea of inventing a device that they can point at King Aridin and shut him down. While the Green Ranger is having a tough battle, Rocky tells him that they need the dragon dagger for a few seconds, and this was unexpected for Matthew since that was his only weapon at the time, but he decides to trust Rocky and looks to dodge all the blows without his weapon. After that, they return the gun to Matthew with the new device attached to the dagger and tell him to aim it at King Aridin. At that moment Matthew aims it at the king and gives him a big pulse shock to try to shut down the machines, but even though it was a hard hit to the king, it still did nothing to him. After the blow, the king gets up and tells the Green Ranger that they are automaton machines and can't shut them down easily, and then starts attacking him again. Rocky is getting desperate as he wants to help his partner and tells Zordon that he must break his rules about identity. Zordon replies to him that his rules have to change, and the new rule is that no ranger dies. With this, Zordon gives Rocky permission to go out and fight alongside Matthew, but first he goes to talk to his brothers and sisters to say goodbye and tells them he has to go do something important. The Red Ranger leaves the force field, and a new battle is about to begin. In Safe Haven, Zack is still trying to calm the new alien girl who keeps growing at an impressive speed and has big changes in several hours very quickly. Trini went in search of food and Zack is left alone in the house trying to take care of the girl, but she keeps crying non-stop. Zack keeps trying to give her food, but the little girl throws all the food everywhere and Zack doesn't know what he is doing. At that moment, Trini arrives, and the girl stops crying and it seems that she feels calmer around her. Trini tells Zack that she is still running tests in the capsule where the girl was to get more information about her, but the process is going to take several days. This scares Zack because with the speed at which the girl is growing in a couple of days, she could be an old woman. At that moment, Zack confesses to Trini that he named the girl who is now going to be called Journey, but she gets very angry since they had made the decision not to get attached to the girl since they are not her real parents, and they are only taking care of her. Trini and Zack begin to argue, but the girl starts to talk and tries to say her name and causes a lot of affection in Trini. On planet KO-35 are Jason, Andrus, and Yale searching for the central base of the Zurichs, the aliens who destroyed this planet. Jason feels a little angry that he has given Andrus his full trust, but he still hasn't told Jason where they are going and what they are looking for. After almost 2 days of searching, the Rangers find the Zurichs base, which is full of soldiers and prisoners from the planet. Andrus tells Jason what the plan is, and that is that they are going to infiltrate the place and neutralize the vigilantes silently and then seek to free the prisoners. Jason asks Andrus what happened on the planet and he replies that Dark Specter recruited the Zurichs to wipe out the planet since Zordon was helping the inhabitants develop Ranger technology. Andrus says that he and Zane were part of the Rangers and were to share Ranger technology with other nearby planets to create an alliance. Apparently, Dark Specter had the same idea and sent the Zurichs to destroy everything. After that, They sent a swarm of insects that turned all the people into monsters, and the survivors had to fight against their own people. Andrus tried to protect the people who survived, but several days ago he went to look for food, and when he came back, the people were gone. The Zuriks are going to continue to take everything that is left of the planet, and when they have everything, then they will execute all the survivors and then leave. Andrus very angrily tells Jason that it doesn't matter if there are 1 million Zurik soldiers, tonight they are going to win the battle. Back in Safe Haven, Journey is still growing up and is now getting into lots of mischief like any 5-year-old girl. Then, Zack takes her for a walk and tries to teach her new words, and Journey continues to learn, but just then, an animal from the planet appears and tries to attack them. Zack transforms and grabs the girl and starts to run, but turns around and manages to kick the animal, which leaves in pain, and Journey looks like she enjoyed the whole adventure, but Zack asks her not to say anything to Trini. It is already night in KO 35, and it is time for Jason, Andrus, and Yale to enter the base to save the prisoners. The Zuriks vigilantes realize that there is something strange at the water exit, and at that moment, Andrus shoots one of the vigilantes with his blaster. The other one tries to escape, but Andrus also shoots him after the vigilante had already given the alert. Now, we can see the ranger suit that Andrus has, which is a different suit than the one we have already seen for years. This new suit is completely black and has a different symbol on the chest. Andrus wants them to split up, but Jason insists that they should stay together since this is just a mission to rescue the survivors. Andrus continues to insist that he wants to attack the Zuriks and show them the same mercy they have shown. Just then, the Rangers are attacked by a group of Zurik soldiers, and Jason tells Yale that he knows what he must do. The battle begins, and Andrus begins to attack the Zuriks without mercy and with a great thirst for revenge. Jason realizes this and tries to stop him, telling him that he must remember that they are only there to rescue the survivors. At that moment, Yale arrives with all the rescued prisoners who attacked the Zuriks. Andrus is confused and doesn't know how this happened, and Jason tells him that this happened remembering that it was a rescue mission. Back in Safe Haven, Zack is teaching Journey how to play a sport they have on that planet. A family passes by the same place who also have a little girl just like them, and the family stops to say hello to the Rangers and talk a little with Journey as well. When the family leaves, Journey realizes that they are all the same, but she doesn't look like Zack and Trini. Because of this, she asks them why she is different. Trini decides to tell her the truth and tells her that they are not her real parents and that her real family may be dead, or maybe there is also a possibility that they are still alive. In addition to this, she also promises him that they will take care of her and keep searching until they find her real family. At that moment, Zack receives a call from Kimberly, who is on another planet and apparently gives the Rangers some bad news. On KO 35, the survivors board a ship to escape the planet and seek refuge, at which point Andrus says goodbye, but Jason asks him to go with him to Safe Haven. Andrus then tells Jason that during the invasion the Zurich stole the Astro megaship, which contained most of the Ranger technology, including several prototype morphers. If Dark Specter finds this technology, then the Morphin grid will be at risk. Andrus says goodbye to Tikwa and has a conversation with her as he apparently has a secret plan that the Rangers cannot know about. Part of that secret mission is to save Zane and make Dark Specter pay for everything he did to this planet. Now, Jason talks Eleven into opening the portal that takes them back to Safe Haven, and on the other side are Zack and Trini waiting for Jason to give him the bad news Kimberly told them. Trini is crying and Zack doesn't know how to tell Jason what was going on. Finally they tell him that his mom had passed away. Tommy, Aisha, and Alpha 5 are on planet Leonis at the party of the king, trying to complete the mission to get the location of the command center they have hidden there. Alpha saves Tommy as he starts talking to the king, and he believes everything that Alpha is saying, who is disguised as a stylist. At that moment, Billy sends a message to Aisha and tells her that he already has all the data he needs and can get Tommy and Alpha out of the place. Although Aisha was enjoying Alpha's performance, she interrupts the conversation and manages to get them out of the place. On Earth, Rocky joins Matthew to fight King Aridin in a tough battle. The Rangers are trying to buy time to wait for the other Rangers who are on planet Leonis. Matthew is fighting the king and Rocky must take out all the other robots. Unfortunately, the king is very powerful and is beating the crap out of Matthew. The king has the Green Ranger lying on the ground about to finish him off, and Rocky saves him by firing his blaster. The two continue to fight and try to stick to the plan so they can give the other Rangers more time. In Leonis, Kimberly and Adam are in the planet's security tower to try to disable the satellites in order to teleport the command center. Adam helps Kimberly go down to a place full of laser beams that can trigger the alarm, but she deactivates them by launching an arrow with great precision. They manage to enter the place and neutralize the guards. Then they encounter a janitor who continues to do his job and doesn't bother the Rangers. After neutralizing several guards, they reach the security center and start looking for the button to turn off the satellites. Meanwhile, Kimberly is surprised that Adam has learned how to be a Power Ranger very quickly and feels that she is not that important since they can easily replace her. Adam tells her that she shouldn't feel that way, she should look at it from another point of view. If other people can replace her, then she doesn't have the weight of the security of the universe on her shoulders. Any day she can retire and move on with her life, as nothing lasts forever, and someday, she won't be a Power Ranger anymore. The war on Earth continues, and the king takes advantage of Rocky's back and launches an attack, but Matthew throws himself at him and is shot. The attack was so powerful that they both destroy a rock, and a cave is formed where they begin to talk about what to do next. The king is very powerful, and they are both badly hurt. Matthew can no longer get up and Rocky begins to feel that he doesn't have the power to defeat the king. Matthew tells Rocky that he is very strong despite being under so much pressure from the invasion. He still hasn't stopped taking care of his family. With those words, Rocky regains his strength and stands up ready to continue fighting, but before he leaves, Matthew gives him the power of the dragon. Rocky goes out to fight and quickly breaks the king's weapon with his sword and the dragon dagger at the same time. On the other planet, the Rangers find the command center and prepare to make the biggest teleportation in the history of the universe. Rocky is still fighting, and even though the king no longer has any weapons, he is still very powerful and hard to defeat. The other Rangers are still preparing, and Tommy is a little scared as it is a very complicated mission, but Billy tells him that they have everything under control. The king has Rocky on the floor almost defeated and already wants to finish him off, but Rocky keeps resisting while the other Rangers are about to do the teleportation. At that moment, the king grabs Rocky by the helmet, but Rocky doesn't give up and tells him that he's not going to let it go, so the king tells him that he's going to bury him there and throws him hard against the ground. At that moment, the Rangers start the teleportation from planet Leonis, and the plan that Billy and Grace have is that the rubble of the old command center is moved 1 kilometer to the west and the new command center is teleported to the same place where the old one was. Despite the heavy impact, Rocky gets up and the king grabs his broken gun to throw at Rocky. The king tells Rocky that he is finished and defeated, but Rocky replies that the plan the Rangers have is going to work. The king mockingly asks him about the plan, and Rocky replies that on Earth we call it stalling. At that precise moment all the Rangers arrive, Tommy, Kimberly, Billy, Adam and Aisha, along with the command center in one of the most epic moments I have ever seen. At that moment, Rocky tells the king that the Earth will always be protected and that he should leave right now and to tell all of his friends. At that moment, the king quickly leaves in his ship into space, while Rocky enters the power chamber to see his family. All his brothers and sisters hugged him, very relieved that it's all over now. His sister tells him that she is proud of him in a roundabout way by making him understand that she knows his secret. Now they are all together in the new command center, and Tommy tells Grace and Matthew that even though they don't have the best relationship, he is still very grateful for all the help they have given them and for protecting their home. Matthew tells Tommy that he only served as support since Rocky did the most important work. Aisha asks if they should start worrying about Lord Zed's location since they don't know anything about him. Zordon tells her that they should worry about that another time, and for now they should just enjoy the great mission they have all done. At that moment, Rocky interrupts the conversation to ask about Alpha's location since he didn't come with the Rangers, and Grace asks about the ship he loaned them. Billy tells them that Alpha is on his way back from planet Leonis with the ship and should arrive soon. The Rangers, instead of teleporting the command center along with the ship, apparently decided to have Alpha fly the ship to Earth. At that point, Kimberly gets a call and says they need to call the Omega Rangers. Adam thinks they want to have a party to celebrate having a new command center, but the call was for something else. Those who saw the previous episode know that the Omega Rangers got a call from Kimberly, and it was to tell Jason that his mom had passed away. The mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Omega Rangers are all on Earth at Jason's mother's funeral. After the ceremony at the cemetery, everyone gathers at Jason's house to support the family. At that moment, Ernie, who tends the juice bar, approaches Jason to give him words of support and tells him that one day he saw his mother hiding watching Jason teach some kids. Ernie offers his full support, then leaves in tears, and Jason continues to greet everyone else. Outside the house are the other Rangers talking about the cause of death of Jason's mother, and at the end Kimberly said that Jason's father revealed to her that it was due to a heart arrhythmia. In Safe Haven, there is Andrus and Eleven with Azurix, which they have him as a prisoner to try to get information about Dark Specter's plans, but despite all their efforts, the Azurix does not tell them anything. The prisoner takes the opportunity to try to humiliate Andrus by telling him that the people of his planet were cowards because they had invaded another planet which was less developed and the people were able to defend themselves, but the people of KO-35 hid like cowards. Andrus and Eleven leave the prisoner's room and Eleven apologizes to Andrus for not being able to help him and get information out of the prisoner, but Andrus tells him that they can try again tomorrow. Then they say goodbye and Eleven thinks Andrus is going to sleep, but in reality, he came back with the prisoner and pulls him out of his energy shield to have another kind of dialogue without witnesses. On Earth, Jason is trying to talk to his father, but his father constantly ignores him, and Jason realizes this. In the end, they have a small argument, and the father tells him that he is going to sell the house and move out, that he doesn't need Jason and that everyone should live their lives as they want. At the juice bar, Zach gets a call from Journey, who is now the size of a 10-year-old girl despite being only a week old. Journey is performing a magic act and the Rangers are enjoying the show. Then, Zach says goodbye to Journey and tells her it's time for bed. At that point, he begins to have a conversation with Aisha, who asks him if they are ready to leave Journey when they find their planet. At the GYM are Trini, Jason and Tommy working out and talking about King Aridin, who almost defeated the Rangers. Tommy and Trini are very concerned about Jason's emotional health and tell him he can take a few days off to rest, but Jason tells them he is in good health and wants to keep working. The next day in Safe Haven, Eleven and Andrus return to talk to the prisoner, who by some coincidence is very beaten and now wants to cooperate by providing all the information he can. The prisoner makes several confessions and talks about the possible location of the Astro megaship. After that, Eleven locks him in a kind of space chest similar to the same one Zordon used to lock Rita in. He then takes the chest to a giant vault where there are many chests and tells him that he will be safe there until he is judged in an SPD court. Despite everything, the chest seems to have an open lid and a light comes out of it. Then, the prisoner's voice is heard calling Andrus and asking him to get him out of there. Andrus appears and tells him that he must activate the device he gave him in order to teleport inside. Now they are both inside the vault and the prisoner starts telling Andrus that he fulfilled his part of the deal and now he must fulfill his part and get him out of there to be free. Suddenly, Andrus begins to hear a voice telling him that revenge is a great ally, but the Zurix doesn't hear the voice and thinks Andrus has gone mad. At that moment, the Zurix gets very angry that Andrus is ignoring him and tries to attack him, but Andrus takes him out with his blaster. Andrus keeps hearing the voice and starts to follow it to find out where it is coming from. That voice starts to tell him that it was waiting for him and that it had been there in the dark for thousands of years. At the command center, Jason and Zordon are having a conversation about everything that needs to be improved so that the same thing that happened on planet KO-35 doesn't happen again. Then, this conversation gets a little awkward as Zordon tries to give Jason words of support and tells him he can take a few days off. Jason gets angry and tells him that everyone is treating him like he is bad, but he really has nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. He also tells Zordon that he is a little jealous of Andrus because even though he lost everything, at least he has someone to blame and take it out on. He lost his mother and can't do anything about it. Back in Safe Haven, we can see that Andrus is still chasing the voice and entering deep into the darkness of the vault. The voice gets louder and louder until he finally manages to find the chest where the voice is coming from. This chest is different from the others. It is isolated and chained, which gives us a clear reference that what is inside is very dangerous. The voice says that he was able to defeat death, and this is why Andrus wants to free him to help him defeat Dark Specter. The voice tells him that he will do that and much more. It also tells him that Andrus has seen the face of death, and with loss comes understanding and power. It also tells him something very important, and that is that long ago he was one of those chosen to protect the universe forever, and he has some unfinished business. Andrus then breaks the chains and opens the chest to see that what is inside is a gauntlet just like the Omega Rangers. Several days after Jason's mother's funeral, Kimberly goes to visit him because he is very depressed and won't accept help from anyone. She brings him food and Jason receives it with no desire to receive visitors. When they are in the kitchen, she realizes that several people have already brought him food as well, and Jason has a lot of clutter in his house. She offers to help him, but Jason insists that he is fine and doesn't need anyone's help. When she leaves Jason's house, Kimberly runs into Trini outside and they begin to have a chat. Kimberly thought Trini had come to help Jason, but she had actually just left since she also realized that Jason wants to be alone. The two begin to talk about how after they get to Earth, they must answer all their cell phone messages since they don't have that signal in space to receive messages and calls from Earth. Trini also tells Kimberly that she needs to go shopping since they don't have clothes for humans in space. After trying on a lot of clothes, Trini decides to wear something more daring, and Kimberly is a little confused since she had not seen Trini with that style, but she tells her that in space she learned not to follow cultural fashions. Then, they both sit down to eat and start to have a little awkward conversation as Trini starts to tell her about some secrets. Kimberly was surprised as she couldn't believe that there were other Power Rangers now that she knew about Andrus. Trini tells her that there are actually more things that they don't know, and because of this Kimberly is very curious to know more about it. Trini begins to tell her about how everyone knows that Lord Draken had escaped from his cell and then returned to help with the Imperials, but that wasn't the first time he had actually returned. The first time he came back was when he killed Tommy, and Rangers of all times and space came to defeat Draken. At that time, all the memories the Rangers had of that event were erased, but an emissary restored the Omega Rangers' memories, and that is why Trini knows all of this. Kimberly gets a little confused and obsessed with all these secrets Trini told her and goes to the command center where Billy is repairing the Zords to ask him for a favor. She tells Billy that he was able to repair and upgrade the Green Ranger Power Coin, so maybe he can manage to upgrade the powers of the Power Rangers. Billy suspects that this request is because of something else, so he asks Kimberly, and she replies that she talked to Trini about the future of the Power Rangers and found out that they are all replaceable. Billy starts to get interested in the situation, and Kimberly tells him that the Rangers always put their lives at risk and need to increase their power to be prepared. Billy agrees to start working on something that will help them improve and is going to share the idea when he has something worthwhile. Kimberly goes to the GYM to train, but she is still very thoughtful about the whole thing. At that moment, Tommy arrives and realizes that something is wrong with Kimberly. Even though he tries to talk about it, she doesn't feel like talking about all the bad things she is thinking. Even so, Tommy tells her that she doesn't have to go through all of this alone. At that moment, Kimberly receives an alert from Billy and Tommy decides to join her. The Rangers arrive at the command center to talk to Billy, and he tells them that he searched Zordon and Alpha's files so he wouldn't invent something that had already been made up and found something that can help them improve their powers. Billy's plan is to send the Rangers to a simulated pocket dimension where he can create fake villains so the Rangers can practice and use the new power. Kimberly and Tommy make their transformation and travel to the pocket universe Billy has prepared. Quickly, in this universe, you can find old villains, the Z-Putty Patrollers, which were the first soldiers that Rita used to confront the Power Rangers. Then, Billy introduces the most recent villains, the machines that Rocky and Matthew had to fight. The Rangers begin the battle and Billy tells them they can activate the new power to begin the test. The metal armor is the new power that the Rangers now have, which gives them more strength and power to continue battling. The Rangers begin to test their new power and realize that they can destroy enemies even with their bare hands. At that moment, Billy realizes that the new armor consumes a lot of power from the Morphin grid, but the problem with this new power is that the energy is very unstable. Because of this, Billy asks the Rangers to deactivate the new power, but Kimberly starts to really like the power and doesn't want to deactivate it. Tommy talks to Kimberly and tells her that they should deactivate the power and do what Billy says, but she still thinks she can control all that power. Billy clarifies to her that it's not about self-control, but that the new armor's power is volatile and that throws the Morphin grid out of control. The pocket dimension depends on the Morphin grid and it is very risky. At that moment, the communication with Billy is cut off and the Rangers try to connect again but are unsuccessful. They start to worry, so they decide they must get out of there but realize that nothing works. At that moment, a black hole opens in the sky which begins to destroy everything in the city, including buildings, roads, and even the enemies that were there for the Rangers to practice. The ground begins to break, and lava appears. Now it forms a kind of tornado that falls to Earth and forms a giant sphere that begins to swallow everything around it. At that moment, a voice is heard coming out of the sphere, a voice of someone that many of us know, but that the Rangers of that time still do not know. From the sphere begin to come out several of the worst villains that have existed in the entire history of Power Rangers. Now we get to see Trakina, the villain from Lost Galaxy. Then there's Sledge, a villain we started seeing in Dino Charge E but was in several more seasons. We can also see the Black Lion Warrior from Jungle Fury, Then there is Void Queen from Dino Fury, and finally we can see one of the worst villains ever, Rancic from Time Force. Trini and Zack are shopping at Safe Haven for food with Journey, who has grown up quickly and is now a teenager. At this point in her adolescence, she is in a rebellious and misbehaving phase. Because of this, she has many arguments with Zack and says she hates them both. At that moment, Archon and Kever arrive, who invite them to a dinner to celebrate life since they knew that Trini and Zack were at a funeral. At that moment, Kever meets Journey and the two show a mutual interest in each other. When Archon and Kever left, Zack wasn't too sure he wanted to go to the dinner, but Trini was the one who accepted the invitation since she realized Journey was interested in Kever. At that moment, we can see Vox's followers, who were hiding in the shadows keeping an eye on the Omega Rangers. These villains were destroying another planet, but they heard Omega's message, and with that they knew their exact location. The Omega Rangers have Vox imprisoned, and that is why his followers were looking for the Omega Rangers, in order to free their boss. Now, Jason, Andrus and Eleven are planning how they are going to look for the Astro Megaship, since Eleven was able to find it with the help of the Zurichs they were holding prisoner and cooperated voluntarily after a short visit from Andrus. Part of the mission is to evade an entire army, and Andrus intends to do the mission alone, but Jason won't allow it and tells him that Rangers always help each other because if something goes wrong, then he will have support. At the house, Zack and Trini start an argument with Journey since now they are going to have to go out in search of the Astro Megaship, and they are going to leave Journey alone, who is very angry because she can never go with them. He obviously explains to her that they can't take her since it's a war zone, plus he tells her to go to the dinner by herself, but not to hang out with Kever since he's a bad influence. This makes Journey very angry, and again she and Zack start arguing. Journey starts to cry and says that one day she will wake up and she will be older than them and will not have been able to do anything with her life. She also wished they had never found her. On the Astro Megaship is the entire Zurich's army, and along with them is the Prime Minister and the Viceroy, who have the mission to dismantle the entire ship, but there is one room that they have not been able to open because of the high level of security. This room contains the biggest secrets of the ship, and the Viceroy says that Dark Specter sent Darkonda to look for exactly what is inside that room. Just then one of the Zurichs arrives to tell the Viceroy that the Power Rangers have arrived. Outside the ship were Trini and Zack in their Omegazords, and Andrus was in his Galaxy Glider trying to invade the ship. At that point, the mission was to disable the shield generator so the Rangers could enter the ship, and Zack was able to complete the mission and remove the shields. Thanks to this, Jason and Yale were able to invade the ship and started fighting with all the Zurichs that were at the entrance. At Safe Haven, Journey and Kever went for a walk for a while, and Journey tells him about the argument he had with Zack and what he said about Kever. Despite this, Kever gives Journey good advice and tells her that for a while he was alone and did everything he wanted, but it's actually good to have several adults who care about you, ask if you ate and who you're going out with. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Archon and 11 are preparing food and having a conversation about the different flavors of energy to charge 11. At that moment, 11 receives a shock from Vox's followers, who take advantage of the opportunity that the Rangers are out of the planet. Inside the Astro megaship are Yale, Andrus and Jason fighting with many Zurichs, and Jason tells Andrus that even though he likes the black suit, he should do Morphin since that would be the help they need. Andrus tells him that even though he can morph, he won't do it since he promised himself that when he fixes all that trouble that happened on his planet, then he will morph again. Jason respects his decision, but suddenly he realizes that Andrus is gone. Now Jason and Yale have to face an army by themselves. Andrus had gone to look for Zane, who was dead, and his body was in a box similar to the escape chamber where the Rangers found Journey. Andrus opens the box and puts the gauntlet he found in the chest in Safe Haven's vault into his hand, and Zane is revived. In Safe Haven, Vox's followers want to enter that same vault to look for their boss there, but despite threatening Archon by telling him they are going to eat rotisserie chicken, he still won't give them access to the vault since the only one who can open it at that moment is 11, but they disabled him upon arrival. Kever and Journey are in hiding figuring out how they are going to help Archon, but Journey is too scared and Kever tells him they must go out and fight. On the other side, Trini and Zack are surrounded by many members of the Zurich's army. Jason and Yale can no longer continue fighting with so many soldiers, and when they are about to change the plans, someone hits very hard to all the Zurichs. Jason and Yale are very confused and all the Zurichs fall defeated. At that moment, Andrus' voice is heard apologizing to Jason for abandoning them, but Andrus doesn't come alone, he comes with his friend Zane. In this image we can see that Zane has teeth like a skull, which means that there is something inside him that is different. This is the awakening of the Death Ranger, the beginning of one of the most powerful Rangers in the history of the franchise. In the pocket dimension, which is damaged, and the Rangers no longer have communication with Billy, are Tommy and Kimberly, who are about to have a battle with Rancic and several other villains. The villains are a bit confused because they can't recognize the Rangers since they are not from their time, but they still want to take them down. Tommy and Kimberly are aware of this, so they begin a dialogue that they are going to have to fight. The battle begins and the Rangers quickly realize that these villains are very powerful. Tommy tries to attack, but they hit him so hard that he goes out flying. Kimberly shoots an arrow, but it is easily deflected. Then several villains attack Tommy at the same time. Kimberly tries to help him, but they also attack her. Rancic grabs Tommy by the neck and says this brings back memories. At that moment, Rancic hits Tommy so hard that he destroys all his armor and he is left lying on the ground while Kimberly is badly injured and can't do anything. Kimberly tries to save Tommy, so she holds him and starts to fly away, while the villains get a little desperate as they don't want to let her escape. But one of them says to let them go so they can hunt them down and it will be more fun. Kimberly is desperate and starts checking Tommy's pulse to see if he is still alive. Tommy is still alive, but he is badly wounded and can no longer fight. Just then the unexpected happens. the pink emissary appears and tells Kimberly that Tommy is only alive because of the awesome armor the Rangers have developed. Kimberly is confused as she thought there were only 3 emissaries. But the emissary tells her that their job is to exist beyond the known to monitor the Morphin grid for threats. Kimberly blames herself for everything that is happening as she thinks she pushed Billy and now the new armor has created instability in the grid. The emissary clarifies to her that even though the armor was unstable, what really caused those villains to arrive was her fear. Kimberly tells her that she is afraid because Trini told her that Tommy died in the events of the shattered grid and that the Rangers must be replaced by other Rangers. The emissary tells her that she has a little knowledge, but in reality, she has a lot of misconceptions, yet she blames herself because the emissaries thought that erasing the memories of the shattered grid events would help protect them from further disruption. But in reality the opposite happened. At that moment, the pink emissary puts her finger on Kimberly's forehead and gives her back all the memories of those events, including the entire battle and the Rangers she helped. With these memories back in her mind, Kimberly realizes that they are not going to replace them, but that it is natural causes of their own that bring about the retirement of each Ranger. She is very remorseful, and the pink emissary tells her that now that she is closer to the pink specter, she can use that to defeat the villains of that dimension. After this, Kimberly seeks out the villains and they are shocked and think she just wants a quick end. But what they don't know is that now she has a greater power, the power of knowledge. Suddenly, Kimberly raises her arms and begins to raise the pink power. With this power, all the pink Rangers of the story appear, guided by Kimberly saying that it's Morphin time. All the Rangers do Morphin and Kimberly tells them that they are going to show the villains what awaits them in the future. All the pink Rangers start attacking all the villains, forming a big team, which is winning the battle. In this battle we can see all the pink Rangers of the story, including Dino Fury's Pink Ranger. Now several Rangers use their blasters to attack Rancic heavily and Kimberly continues to lead the team and gives the order to surround the villains to finish them off. Kimberly gives the order, and all the Rangers start attacking at the same time, causing a big explosion and the destruction of all the villains. After this attack all the villains begin to disappear, but the pink Rangers are also disappearing, and Kimberly says goodbye to them. At that moment, Billy's voice starts to be heard, who is still trying to communicate with the Rangers. Now Kimberly and Tommy return to the command center and Billy starts to apologize for the whole situation, but Kimberly tells him that it's all her fault. Billy checks on Tommy and says that everything is fine, but now he's going to leave the armor development to Zordon and Alpha. Billy asks Kimberly about what happened in the other dimension, and she tells him she got some perspective. Now Kimberly and Tommy sit outside the command center at sunset and start talking about the situation that was going on with Kimberly. She apologizes to Tommy as she feels guilty because he almost got killed in that other dimension, but Tommy tells her that a lot of things happened that she couldn't have prevented it. Kimberly tells him that she was able to meet other Rangers and they were all cool. She was able to see a future where they were no longer Power Rangers and had stopped being Power Rangers by choice. She also tells him that even though she doesn't want to retire now, still, she should start considering other things in life, maybe travel the world, and tells Tommy that maybe he can go with her. Tommy tells her that he is afraid to give up the power of the Rangers as he doesn't want to become Draken, but she tells him that he is never going to become Draken. Kimberly also tells him that today he learned that they should worry less about the future and worry more about the present. Kimberly and Tommy enter the command center and are met with the surprise that the other Rangers were all gathered together. Rocky tells Kimberly that because of the situation she was going through and that they know now that they are not the only Rangers, that they should have a name for their group, and maybe this will give her some encouragement. Kimberly thanks them all but tells them that she already overcame her crisis and now she just wants to help as many people as she can while it is her turn to be a Ranger. Now the Rangers are off to the juice bar, and we get to see all the names the Rangers wrote down. On the Astro Megaship, Jason, Yale and Andrus are still on the ship with supposedly Zane, although in reality this is no longer the real Zane, but another being that took over his body. Jason is very confused as he does not know who this person is and feels that something is not right. Zane calls Jason by name and tells him that he will understand everything in due time, but that he has seen his life and his death. He has also seen his mother, and if Jason follows him then he will show him much more. Andrus and Zane begin to power up the ship, while Jason tries to communicate with the other Omega Rangers, who were desperate to hear from Jason. Zack and Trini realize that the Astro Megaship is preparing its weapons to fire, and Jason inside realizes that Andrus and Zane were ready to fire. Zane presses the button and fires all the weapons to explode the Zurich ship and destroys everything there. Jason can't believe it, and Zane confesses to him that they are not going to Safe Haven, they are going to KO-35. In Safe Haven, Journey and Kever are in the weapons room looking for some things to fight Vox's followers. Kever has doubts and doesn't know if Journey knows how to fight, but she tells him that Trini and Zack taught her some moves. Kever then tries to attack her to know her reflexes, but Journey defends herself very well and throws him to the ground. Vox's followers try to break the vault door to get their boss out of there. While Archon is on the floor, he tells the leader of the followers that they traveled just to get Vox's psycho out. The leader beats him and tells him who Vox really is, that he was touched by the energy of the Morphin grid in the events of the Shattered Grid, and from that moment he started to save his world, which was led by corrupt politicians. At that moment, Journey and Kever enter to start attacking Vox's followers and help their friend Archon. At first, the leader of the followers thought they were the Rangers, but Archon feels sorry for the leader since he knows that Journey and Kever are more rebellious. In space, Trini and Zack are following the Astro Megaship and trying to communicate with Jason, but they are unable to do so. They don't know where they are going either and are very desperate and confused. Inside the ship, Jason is very angry because they should not have blown up that ship. He begins to have an argument with Zane, and in the end, Jason demands him to answer who he really is. This being replies that he is just now Zane from KO-35, but before that he was Spark the Gold Omega Ranger. Jason had never heard of a Gold Omega Ranger, and Andrus tries to tell him that when he became a Ranger, he started hearing a lot of stories about the ancient Omega Rangers and the Gold Omega Ranger who conquered death. Jason is very angry as Andrus manipulated them to get to the vault and release this supposed ranger when he was on Earth at his mother's funeral. Andrus tells him it was the only way to get Zane and his people back. Then Zane starts telling him the whole plan. They have to resurrect the people of KO-35 and then take down the Zurichs and Dark Specter. They will then travel all over the galaxy to resurrect everyone who was wronged and finally bring justice. Jason tries to convince Andrus that all of that is wrong and tells him that he understands what it's like to lose the people you love, that all of that is not justice, that all of that is revenge. Even so, Andrus still thinks that he deserves to have his revenge, but Jason keeps trying to convince him that, despite feeling a lot of pain for the loss, a lot of innocent lives are really going to be lost in the process. He also tries to explain to him that he would give anything to get his mother back, but if that thing possessing Zane's body were to bring her back, then she wouldn't be the same. Finally, he tells her that he is using it to At that moment, the unexpected happens. Jason is pierced with a sword in the chest by the being that possesses Zane's body. Now, Andrus is very scared and can't believe what is happening, but Zane tells him that Jason won't be dead for long. Then, Zane's voice changes and it is the voice of this shadowy being saying that Andrus wanted his friend back and he requires a more powerful body. Then, Zane takes off the gauntlet and puts it on Jason, while telling Andrus that he should not regret the death as they are fighting for the soul of the galaxy itself and need soldiers. After this they also take Yale's life to make him just another soldier of this shadowy being. In Safe Haven, Journey and Kever are still fighting with Vox's followers and are winning the battle, but then the leader realizes that there is no one else with them to fight, so he starts trying to hit Kever and breaks his weapon. When he is about to hit Kever, Journey saves him by giving the leader of the followers a terrible kick. The leader is very confident and thinks Journey is no match for him, but she dodges all the blows, raises her weapon with a lot of power and makes a tremendous energy blast. Archon and Kever are surprised because now we can see Journey bigger and they don't know how old she is now. In space, Trini and Zack arrive at KO-35. Their Omegazords don't have much energy anymore, but they must land on the planet since they know that the Astro Megaship is there and everyone knows that they already arrived too. On the planet we can see Andrus and Zane talking about the planet and everything that is happening. Zane thinks everything is beautiful, but Andrus tells him that all of this is not right since they were supposed to drive away the horrors, not bring new horrors to the planet. Zane tells him that everything is not exactly as they imagined, but thanks to him the whole planet is about to live again. At that moment, Trini and Zack arrive. They start asking about Jason and Yale. They also ask Andrus about Zane since they had never seen him before. Now something impressive happens. All the dead people on the planet start to resurrect and look like alien zombies. Trini and Zack decide to go back to the Omegazords, but the Death Ranger in Jason's body tells him that he won't allow it. At that moment, Jason and Yale start attacking Trini and Zack and they still can't understand what is happening. The battle begins and the Death Ranger says that Jason and Yale are at his service and soon they will be too. Then, Zane hits Zack in the back and Yale takes advantage of the moment to attack him. Jason and Trini are also still fighting, and the Death Ranger speaks through Jason's body, telling Trini that he got tired of seeing them disgrace the Omega Ranger's name and they have allowed too many things. Meanwhile, Andrus continues to see everything that is happening and feels very sorry. Then Eleven's voice is heard trying to communicate with Andrus. Then Eleven opens the portal and Andrus tells him that when he enters, he should close it quickly. Andrus enters through the portal and Zane tells Jason that they knew Andrus wouldn't have the strength to do all this. Then in Safe Haven we can see Andrus enter through the portal and quickly yell at Eleven to close the portal. Everyone in Safe Haven is confused and asking about the Omega Rangers. Andrus is very remorseful and doesn't know if the Omega Rangers are still alive. Then, on Earth in the new command center we can see Tommy and Billy talking about what happened with Kimberly and the pink emissary. They are discussing the possibility that there are more emissaries, one for each ranger, and Billy says that maybe there is a white emissary or maybe all the emissaries are Tommy since the white light is the combination of all the colors. At that moment, Andrus, Eleven, Kever and Journey arrive to ask for help from the Rangers, telling them that the universe is in danger. At the command center on Earth, Andrus is explaining to Zordon who the Death Ranger is and tells him that he had made a deal with him. Andrus would release him in exchange for helping him defeat Dark Specter, but the Death Ranger did extreme things and now possesses Zane's body and the Omega Rangers. In addition to that, he also awakened all the dead on planet KO-35 and is gathering an army. Andrus also explains that the Death Ranger is using the Morphin grid to control people, so if they find a way to disrupt that connection then they could defeat him. Billy says that he might have a way to do it, but he needs help from Grace Sterling, and Matthew starts calling her on the phone. Adam is worried about the army of the dead, but Zordon tells him that the army is controlled in the same way, so if they can sever the connection, then there will be no more army. Tommy is very upset and starts yelling, saying that they shouldn't trust Andrus since he is to blame for the whole mess. Tommy asks Andrus for a reason to trust him, and Andrus tells him that if at some point he must give his life to save the Omega Rangers, then he would do it without hesitation, since he at least owes them that much. The other Rangers try to reassure Tommy and they say that for them that is enough, so Tommy tells them that it's Morphin time. After the transformation, 11 opens a portal and sends the Rangers to planet KO-35, but a bit far from the city. Then, the Rangers walk to the city and Andrus asks Billy about the new weapon and he tells him that with one shot from that weapon he can disconnect anyone from the Morphin grid. Tommy asks Andrus if he has any other secrets and Andrus tells him that it is likely that no one will get off that planet alive. At that moment, the Death Ranger's voice is heard saying that he agrees with that. Then, the possessed Omega Rangers appear on top of the ship and the Death Ranger in Jason's body starts talking to the Rangers, trying to turn them against Andrus, saying that this was all planned by him. Kimberly takes off her helmet and starts giving Jason some words of support, but the Death Ranger says that she is a good friend, but Jason is happy where he is. He also says that he took Jason's pain away and gave him peace in exchange for his body, and he can do the same to all the Rangers if they choose to surrender, but Tommy scoffs, saying that they won't surrender. The battle begins and this seems to be a war between all the Rangers. Aisha, Rocky and Kimberly are battling against Trini and Yale, but they are trying to just dodge the blows, so they don't hurt the Omega Rangers since they know they are their friends controlled by the Death Ranger. Despite this, Kimberly gets hit by Trini and Aisha is being tempted to hit Trini. Adam and Matthew are fighting Zack, while Billy adjusts his gun to try to free Zack. Then Billy shoots, and even though he hits Zack, it still didn't do anything to him. Elsewhere, Tommy and Andrus are surrounded by all the zombies. Tommy wants to help Andrus, but Andrus tells him that he must go fight the Death Ranger. He is going to take care of the zombies since it is his responsibility for causing all this. At that moment, Zane appears and starts to fight Andrus as he thinks he is a traitor. Now Tommy starts fighting with the Death Ranger, who starts telling him that Jason despises him since the White Lighter should have been his. He also tells him that he is an imposter and doesn't deserve to lead the team since that was Jason's place. Tommy tells him that if he wants to twist Jason's words to hurt him, then he should try a little harder. At that moment, the Ultra Omega Zord appears and Tommy tells him that it doesn't scare him, but then the Death Ranger brings the Gold Omega Zord and joins it with the Ultra Omega Zord to make it more powerful so he can control it by himself without needing the Omega Rangers. Then, Tommy tells the Rangers that he has good news and bad news, but the bad news they can already see. The good news is that the Death Ranger already showed what he had and called the Zords early, so the plan worked. Tommy then asks the Rangers to call in the Thunder Zords and tells Matthew to back up the Rangers with the Dragon Zord. He also tells Andrus to bring him the new weapon, but Billy isn't sure if it will work. Tommy continues to fight with the Death Ranger and asks all the Rangers to trust him. Aisha is worried about what is going to happen to the Omega Rangers by leaving them alone in the battle, but Tommy tells her not to worry as help has just arrived. Just then, Archon, Kevin and Journey arrive to help the Rangers with the zombies and keep the Omega Rangers busy. We can see that Archon has awesome armor and Journey is bigger and looks like a warrior. Trini and Journey start fighting. Meanwhile, Journey starts telling her everything that has happened since they left. He also tells her that Trini is faster and is supposed to have stopped it by now, but he knows Trini is in there fighting too and slows that thing down, so he doesn't hurt her. On the other side of the battle, the Rangers appear with the Thunder Megazord and the Dragon Zord to attack the Ultra Gold Omegazord, but it defends itself and launches an attack on the Thunder Megazord. The Rangers ask Matthew for help, and he starts attacking the Omegazord. Despite all the attacks, the Omegazord defends itself very well and hits the Dragon Zord very hard. On the floor, the battle between Tommy and the Death Ranger continues, but Tommy tells him that he has an offer for him. Tommy tells him that if he releases the Omega Rangers, then he can take his body. The Death Ranger pauses for a moment as the offer is tempting, but Andrus appears and shoots him. Unfortunately, he misses the shot, and the Death Ranger realizes it was all a trap, so he cuts Billy's gun in half. He then tells Tommy that he is going to be his new body so he can control the other Rangers. In that moment of carelessness, Andrus climbs on top of him, and this causes him to laugh, and he tells Andrus that he won't be able to stop him. Andrus tells him that he may not be able to stop him, but the Morphin grid can. Andrus morphs and creates an explosion inside the grid that separates Jason's body and the Death Ranger, but the Death Ranger keeps talking and tells Andrus that he can't hide. Andrus tries to wake Jason up and yells at him that he must wake up. The Death Ranger keeps trying to control Jason's mind, who is trapped in a dream with the other Rangers, and suddenly Andrus appears. This surprises Jason as he is confused, but Andrus tells him that he must trust him, and they both begin to fall. Now, they appear in another memory of Jason, which is the arrival of all the Rangers before the Battle of the Shattered Grid, and Andrus tells him that they must leave quickly. Unfortunately, it's too late. The Death Ranger appears, grabs Jason by the foot, and they start falling. Down come all the memories of Jason's life. Andrus tries to help Jason and tells him he must remember who he really is. Now Jason begins to live a memory with his mother, and in that memory, he also asks about his father. At that point, Jason realizes that it's all fake and it's the Death Ranger trying to control him with his mother's memories, so he decides to get the hell out of there. Now, the Death Ranger shows up and tells Jason that he gave him peace, revenge, and freedom, yet they reject him. Jason tells him that they must be better than that because they are Power Rangers, and then hits him so hard that he destroys his armor. At that moment, there is an explosion, and they manage to get out of the Morphin grid and out of Jason's mind. Then, we can see that Jason's body is on the ground and the Death Ranger's presence is gone. Andrus says that the Death Ranger's life force has been disconnected from the Morpher and there is no telling where he might be now. Now all the Omega Rangers begin to be released from the Death Ranger's presence and the zombies begin to run out of life. Despite this, the Omegazord continues to attack the Thunderzord and Dragonzord as the Death Ranger's life force joined with the Omegazord. Matthew tells the Rangers that they should merge the Dragonzord with the Thunderzord, and Rocky tells him that he was one step ahead, so they merge both Megazords and transform it into the Dragon Thunderzord. With this new Megazord, the Rangers make a big attack with their sword, and with this they destroy the Death Ranger, who before leaving says that he already saw what is coming and he will be laughing at the Rangers. After a week, the Rangers are in safe haven, but some of them don't want to go back to Earth, but Tommy tells them that Zordon said they must go back before Lord Zed shows up again. Andrus thanks Billy for helping him with the cryogenic chamber, and he tells him that if Zane absorbs enough energy from the Morphin grid, then there may be hope. Tommy asks Jason if he has told them yet, and he says not yet, but he will when the time is right. Aisha is worried about leaving Trini and Zach alone, but Kimberly tells her that they will understand since they are also saying goodbye. We can now see Journey in a bed, which looks very old, and the Rangers are saying goodbye to her. Trini tells her that because she went to fight, her metabolism accelerated and so now she is aging faster. Journey is happy that she was able to travel to different worlds, fight aliens, have lots of love and save the universe. People with longer lifespans don't do all those things. After Journey's death, the Omega Rangers meet and Jason tells them that he can no longer morph since in order to destroy the Death Ranger, Andrus had to cut Jason's connection to the Omega power. He also tells them that Billy may be able to reconnect him to the grid, but he doesn't know how long that process will take. Trini tells him that he should go rest and spend time with his father since life is very short and he should enjoy it. Meanwhile, someone else will take the leadership. Then, we can see Jason listening to a voice message that his mother had left him before she died. We can also see the Astro Megaship in which Andrus goes along with Zane's body in the cryogenic chamber. Now Trini and Zach say goodbye to Jason, then the Rangers morph and we can see that Kever is now the yellow Omega Ranger and Trini has taken the lead and is the new red Omega Ranger. The message from Jason's mom ends by telling him that the Rangers saved the world again, that their job must be overwhelming, and she would like to give them a hug. At the end she tells him that she loves him. This comic book number 101 begins by telling the story of what happened more than 10,000 years ago when Zordon had Rita tied up ready to sentence her to life imprisonment in a container and launch her into space. We all know that at that moment Rita cast a spell, and although they managed to lock her in the container, even so, Zordon was trapped between time and space. The important detail is that in that conversation they had, Rita told Zordon that the war was not over and that his power was going to grow, and she was going to defeat him. After 10,000 years, in the present, after the Rangers finish the Death Ranger thing, Zordon wakes up after having a nightmare about what Rita told him at that time. Because of this, Zordon has a bad feeling and tells Alpha to scan the moon again. In past events, the moon had been invisible, and this is why Zordon's feeling about the moon is strange. In Promethea, the Rangers are training in a training room that Matthew managed to get. In this training, the Rangers form two teams, and the training is paint-based to detect who has been left out. In a not-so-important fact, we can see that Aisha and Matthew have had a bit of a romantic moment, and then the Green Ranger asks Kimberly if Aisha has a partner. After training, Billy brings the news that the moon has reappeared, and even though this is supposed to be good news, still, Billy is worried as it means something has changed. The Rangers return to the command center, and as Zordon begins to talk about the moon, at that moment, they receive an emergency signal. Incredibly, it was a signal from Lord Zed asking the Rangers for help. Although the Rangers think it is a trap, they still feel they must go and see what is going on. After the Rangers morphed, they used the Dragon Zord with the new modification to fly so they could reach the moon undetected. Despite not wanting to be detected, even so, the enemy that was waiting for them on the moon was able to detect them and sent putty patrollers to stop the Dragon Zord. These putty patrollers are different, they are destroyed and then turned into cement. With this they managed to crash the Dragon Zord on the moon, and there we can see the command center of the villains. The Rangers start to see that many putty patrollers are coming, and along with them is Golder, but then they realize that Golder is not the leader, he is trying to run away from these new putty patrollers. Golder begins to desperately ask the Rangers for help, and the Rangers use the power blaster to destroy most of the patrollers. Golder tells the Rangers that she is coming and that she is going to kill Lord Zed, then the Green Ranger hits Golder and knocks him out. Tommy tells the Rangers that even though they think it's a trap, they should go to the castle to see what's going on, so they should start fighting the putty patrollers to clear a path. Billy decides to try to repair the Dragon Zord to have an escape plan, and Tommy asks Adam to watch Billy's back and keep an eye on Golder. The Rangers start fighting all the new putty patrollers, and Tommy asks Rocky and Aisha to go to the castle to look for Zed, so they both use teleportation to get to the castle faster. While Billy tries to repair the Dragon Zord, Adam continues to battle with the putty patrollers to watch Billy's back, and at that moment Golder wakes up very scared. Adam senses that there is something Golder hasn't told him, so he asks him to see if he can get any information out of him. Inside the castle, Rocky and Aisha come across Lord Zed's throne, which is split in half. In that place we can also see that there is Finster, Rita's faithful servant and the creator of the monsters. Outside in the battle, we can see that Golder joined the Rangers and also starts attacking the putty patrollers. Then, Billy tells Tommy that Golder told them that they should go to the caves below the castle since that is where Lord Zed is. Tommy tries to tell Rocky and Aisha to go to the caves, but they have a different problem in the castle. The throne that was split in half turned into a monster, and now they must fight it while Finster enjoys what is going on. Because of this, Kimberly, Matthew and Tommy go to the caves to look for Lord Zed, but they realize that it is very dark, so Kimberly shoots an arrow to give some light to the place. At that moment, they realize something that they had never thought would be real, and that is that when the arrow fell to the ground, they could see the body of Lord Zed almost lifeless and asking for help. On top of Lord Zed's body was Rita Repulsa welcoming the Rangers with a very different physique. Apparently, Rita came back so powerful that Lord Zed couldn't handle her, and that's why Golder was filled with fear. We can see that Rita has different clothes. Her scepter is now black, covered with red cracks, and on her head, she has something similar to what her father Master Vile has. Another important thing to note is that in the background we can see another being in the darkness with glowing blue eyes and a face full of cracks. Apparently, Rita returned with eviler and much more power, just as she had told Zordon 10,000 years ago. The Rangers are over the moon at the castle, and Rita has Lord Zed lying on the ground in agony. She notices that among the 3 Rangers there is also the Green Ranger, and she tells him that the dragon power belonged to her. She also tells him that she would like to know what the Green Ranger's allegiance to her power is now. Kimberly interrupts her and tells Rita that out of her trash can her fashion style still hasn't improved, but Matt very innocently tells Kimberly that he thinks Rita looks great. Kimberly gets very angry and quietly tells Matt that she knows Rita looks amazing, but she's not going to admit it in front of her. Rita recognizes Kimberly's voice and starts to greet her, but tells her that her name is no longer Rita, it's now Mistress Vile. Tommy tells her that he doesn't care what her name is now, what matters is that she stays away from Lord Zed. Mistress Vile with all her arrogance challenges and threatens him. She also tells him that she has everything he needs just a step away. Meanwhile, she continues to beat Lord Zed with her foot and he continues to agonize. Despite being in agony, Lord Zed tells Mistress Vile that she is careless for being a power-hungry fool. She tells him that she came to collect everything he owes her for her years of service and for being locked in a dumpster. At that moment, the most unexpected thing happens. Mistress Vile grabs Lord Zed's mask and rips it off his face. The Rangers are shocked and say they must stop this as they think she can kill him. Now, we can see Lord Zed's face, a skeleton-like face that makes him look like a zombie. Mistress Vile tries to attack Lord Zed, but Tommy stops her with his sword, and she easily hits him and throws him far away. Kimberly tries to attack her, but she stops her with her energy while Matt attacks her from behind and manages to pierce her back with the dragon dagger. As a result, Matt is attacked by the monster that accompanies Mistress Vile, and it is so strong that it pushes Matt's head against the wall and breaks his helmet. Mistress Vile tells the Rangers that she too learned to work as a team and now has a new friend accompanying her. Tommy proceeds to call Rocky and Aisha as they need help, and he has already realized how powerful these 2 villains are. On the other hand, Rocky and Aisha were having a battle with a monster that used to be Lord Zed's throne. They both realize that this monster was very strong since it was made of rock, so they make a plan to defeat it using a tactic they had developed in another fight. Both of them separate, and Aisha starts to argue with Finster, who was nearby. The monster gets distracted by the fight and Rocky takes advantage of his carelessness and cuts him in half with his sword. They both leave and say goodbye to Finster, but he starts talking to Squat and tells him that Mistress Vile will finish them off, and if she doesn't, then Vessel will. Meanwhile, Billy is still trying to repair the Dragon Zord, and Adam tries to help by attacking the new putty patrollers. Adam asks Billy to tell him if he has been able to repair the Dragon Zord since the putty patrollers keep showing up, but he gives him the bad news that the Zord is badly damaged, and he won't be able to repair it. Golder interrupts the conversation and tells them that there is another way to escape from the moon. Inside the castle we can see Rocky and Aisha arriving to help the other Rangers, but they are greeted by the Green Ranger Corps. Tommy says that these villains are very powerful and tells the Rangers that they need to get their act together. Then, Lord Zed, despite being in agony, grabs Tommy's leg and tells him that he has no chance of winning against these villains and that retreating is the only option. He also asks him to take him to Zordon so he can help them defeat the new version of Rita. Tommy gives the order to the Rangers to take Lord Zed and get out of there while he and Kimberly keep the villains busy. Still, Matt doesn't understand why they should save Lord Zed while putting the Rangers' lives at risk, but Rocky tells him that they must obey the order Tommy gave them. Matt then lifts Zed on his shoulders while Rocky and Aisha continue to fight with the putty patrollers. Matt notices that Mistress Vile is about to attack Tommy, so when the Rangers leave, we can see Rocky carrying Zed on his shoulders and we can only see Aisha accompanying him. Billy instructs the Rangers where to go as now the plans have changed and the escape transport is Serpentera, Lord Zed's sword. Then, we can see Tommy being strangled by Vessel, then Vessel smashes him against the wall and breaks his helmet. With this we can see the impressive power that this monster has, but in these images, we can also see a green power that is coming out of Lord Zed's scepter. Meanwhile, Mistress Vile keeps hurting Kimberly with her power, and then even though she tries to defend herself, she throws her far away with so much power that it takes away her transformation. Then, we can see that the green power was Matt with Lord Zed's scepter, and he attacked Mistress Vile to help Kimberly. He also tells her to get Tommy to get out of there since it's his turn to save her this time. While Kimberly and Tommy get out of there, Matt stays behind to fight the two villains using Lord Zed's scepter. Inside Serpentera, Billy tries to keep the Zord flying ready to leave, and at that moment Kimberly and Tommy arrive. Aisha and Kimberly want to wait for Matt, but he tells them not to wait for him as he will not go. He then tells Billy that they should leave as the villains are closing in on them. We then get to see Mistress Vile and Vessel get to where the Rangers are, and we also get to see that Vessel already has Lord Zed's scepter. Matt is still trying to convince Billy to leave now, while the villains gather their scepters to launch a great energy towards Serpentera. The impact is so strong that it destroys part of Serpentera's tail, and with this Billy makes the decision to leave despite leaving Matt. The Rangers try to blow up the Zord, but everything is badly damaged, and even though Billy tries to control it, nothing works, and a descent is inevitable. The Rangers crash and much of the Zord is destroyed in the crash. We can now see that Serpentera is in pieces, but despite this they all survive and begin to communicate with Alpha 5. Inside the castle we can see that Matt is on the ground and Vassal stands in front of him, but Mistress Vile tells him to leave him as she has plans with this Green Ranger. She then says that they are now going to go claim their prize. The Rangers arrive at the command center along with Zed and Golder. Then Zed quickly tells Zordon that they can't waste any time as with her has come ruin. Zordon mentions Rita's name, but Lord Zed tells him that she is now called Mistress Vile. He also tells him that, if she gets what she came for, then no one is going to be able to stop her. At that moment, we can see Mistress Vile and Vessel trying to grab the Zeo crystal, but we can also see that the energy is so powerful that Vassal's hand starts to change color. On another planet we can see Zofram in the middle of a very thoughtful war, and he realizes that Zordon is there with him. The two begin a dialogue and Zofram quickly realizes that he is in some sort of dream. After Zordon calls him by his given name Zofram, he gets upset and tells Zordon that his real name is Lord Zed. He grabs Zordon by the collar and asks him for explanations about what is going on. Zordon tells him that he is dying. We then get to see Lord Zed's body in the command center as Alpha 5 and Billy continues to try to help him. Inside Lord Zed's mind, Zordon tells him that the Rangers are trying to save his life. He then explains to him that he has used the command center technology along with the Morphin grid to connect with his mind. Lord Zed tells Zordon that he is weak for showing mercy, but Zordon tells him there is another reason. He explains to him that a ranger has been taken captive by Mistress Vile and wants to know how she invaded the moon. Lord Zed begins to explain that she arrived very quickly and went through all the defenses like a piece of paper. She was not alone, she came with a companion who was very strong and fought like an Eltarian. Mistress Vile was coming for the Zeo crystal and they had no chance to beat them. This is a death sentence for everyone. Then in the command center we can see the Rangers next to Zordon, who still has a mental connection with Lord Zed. Kimberly is very angry because she feels they must do something soon and she doesn't want to sit idly by. She starts to complain to Tommy, but he tries to explain that they should keep waiting for Zordon as he is looking for the information they need. Aisha starts to support Kimberly and says that they have other Zords they can use. Rocky tries to tell them that won't work as they are also going to be shot down, and Adam backs him up by saying that they should wait until they have a plan. Aisha starts crying desperately and starts running. Adam tries to reach her to comfort her and looks for a way to dialogue with her. Aisha tells him that she is scared as they recently almost lost Jason, Trini and Zach to the Death Ranger. Adam realizes that Aisha likes Matt and now it will be difficult for them to find out if they will be able to have a relationship. On the moon we can see Mistress Vile with the Zeo crystal in her hand, and Squat is very nervous because he thinks that crystal is dangerous. Mistress Vile very angrily asks him to be quiet and tells him that the crystal can't hurt them anymore. She also explains to him that the crystal is a key to open the door to a great unimaginable power. She then asks Squat to take Vessel to Finster's to see if he can repair the arm he hurt pulling the Zeo crystal out of its trap. Mistress Vile also says she has a parting gift for the Rangers. In the lab we can see how Finster is draining Matt's green energy, and at that moment Squat arrives with Vessel. Squat starts telling Finster about all the doubts he has about Vessel and Mistress Vile. He thinks Golder was right since Rita came back very different and Vessel hasn't said a word. Finster tells him that he already made the decision to be on Mistress Vile's side and that Golder has always been too loyal to Lord Zed. He also tells him that he better be on the right side and Mistress Vile's plan comes to fruition. At the command center we can see Billy trying to communicate with Trini, the new Red Ranger of the Omega Rangers. Despite making many attempts, Billy fails to communicate with Trini and says that it must be that she is in unknown space. Kimberly tells him that it wouldn't be the first time they've been ignored and asks Billy why Lord Zed needs to be helped. Billy replies that that's what Rangers do, save lives, even if the other person doesn't deserve it. But Kimberly very angrily replies that it's at the expense of Matt's life and that she's not going to give up until she saves him. Billy tells her that he's not going to give up either since Matt was the one who protected him the first year at school. We then see Grace come in very angrily claiming to Zordon that the Rangers left Matt and the Dragonzord stranded on the moon. She also tells him that this is not the first time he has sent Rangers to die on the moon. This is because the first Ranger team Grace was the leader, Zordon sent them on a mission on the moon and almost all of them died there. Zordon replies to her that this was not the case and that she was the one who gave Matt the morpher. He also tells her that this is a burden he doesn't wish on anyone and hoped he could carry it alone. Grace tells him that we humans are like animals that walk in packs and like to share burdens. In a park we can see Jason talking to Bulk and Skull about some karate classes since they want to learn how to fight. At that moment, we hear a loud explosion and it was a huge monster with some putty patrollers. The monster speaks and says that Mistress Vile sends her greetings to everyone. Then the Power Rangers arrive to battle the monster and they all start fighting. Jason tries to push Bulk and Skull away and tells them that the Rangers have everything under control. It should be remembered that Jason gave up being an Omega Ranger to take a break and also take care of his father. The Rangers begin to fight the monster and quickly realize that they can't pierce its skin since it's made of glass. Tommy tries to use force with several kicks, but this doesn't work, and the monster hits him hard. Aisha tries to help him, and Tommy tells her that he is fighting slowly because he is still recovering from the battle they had on the moon. Then we see Kimberly, who is still very angry and wants to end the battle, so she calls her Zord. Kimberly's Zord arrives and launches a strong attack on the monster, which causes a big explosion and ends the battle. In the command center, Tommy and Kimberly start arguing since she broke the rules. Kimberly tells him that they can't keep wasting time waiting for Rita to make the monster grow and then keep fighting the Zords until it is destroyed. Every second that passes is valuable time to try to save Matt, who is still suffering. Grace interrupts the discussion to inform them that she had put a tracker on Matt and now he is no longer on the moon, and neither is the Dragon Zord. This means that Mistress Vile isn't on the moon either, and the monster was just a distraction for her to leave the moon and take Matt with her. Zordon says they don't know where they are, and Grace says they must be somewhere in deep space. Tommy agrees with Kimberly and says enough is enough, they should stop running. Then, Billy gets a signal on his communicator and the red Omegazord can be seen badly destroyed, but he loses the signal. Alpha 5 manages to locate the coordinates of the Omegazord, and Zordon tells the Rangers that they must make a tough decision again. The Omega Rangers need their help, but they won't stop Matt's search. The Rangers travel to the coordinates given to them by Alpha 5 and find the Omegazord and realize something strange is going on. They start to hear a very disturbing song and can see someone start to come out of the Omegazord. Alpha 1 is the one who was there waiting for the Rangers, as he knew Zordon was going to send them and now he could have his revenge. In space, Rita says that there is never a worse moment than the one in which you discover that, although you gave it your all, it was not enough. In the end, you were still throwaway, broken by those you most wanted to please. We then see how she is saying these words to Matt as she continues to torture him. Rita tries to tell him everything she went through to make him understand that they are both alike, but Matt tells her that he is not like her. Rita tells him that he is still loyal to the Rangers even though they abandoned him, but he believes that if she tells him her story then he will understand that the two of them are alike. A few months ago, after Lord Zed betrayed Rita and locked her in a space trash can just like Zordon had done, a ship appeared looking for this space trash can and had finally found it. Before we see the crew members of the ship, Rita tells the story of her life, in which she says she lived between love and hate. We can see that when she was born, Zordon was present, and her mother gave her a loving upbringing. Then, her father Master Vile found her and took her away to raise her in darkness. He made her a general, and then Lord Zed ordered her to conquer 1,000 worlds for him. Rita began to grow this army by seeking out beings that were being abandoned or in need of a firm hand. Still, this was not enough as she was defeated by Zordon. Despite this, she was persistent, she betrayed her mother, but, even so, she too was betrayed by Lord Zed. At that moment, she knew that her father was right, it was enough who she had become, and she had to become more. On the ship, we can see Divatox, a galactic pirate who was with her crew specifically looking for this space trash can. The real reason is that they were looking for Rita, so they opened the canister to find out if she was inside, and they were right. Divatox tests her by telling her that he would like to know how much a witch would cost on the black market, but Rita fights back and tells him not to mistake her misfortune for weakness. Rita is so powerful that she knocks Divatox down with a single blow, but then she confesses that she was only testing her and that she was going to take her to Gamma Vile, Rita's father's planet. On this planet, we see that Master Vile is very happy to have his daughter back and pays Divatox for his work as promised. Despite this, Rita and her father have a brief argument as she tells him that she didn't need his help as she is a survivor, but her father tells her that she is free because of him. Still, Master Vile wants to celebrate his daughter's arrival and that he also has a vessel for Dark Specter. When Rita hears this, she is very angry as her father keeps trying the same thing and has never achieved anything. She also tells him that because of this her brother Rita Repulsa sacrificed himself and now only has half of his brain. His father, very annoyed, shuts her up and tells her not to forget her place as his patience is wearing thin. He then introduces her to the new vessel and it is Alpha 1. Rita is very angry because she knows it's a lousy idea to have an old Zordon robot for this. Still, Master Vile thinks it's an excellent idea since he says this robot is incorruptible. Then, Alpha 1 takes Rita to his room and there they have a little conversation. They start reminiscing about their past and how powerful they are. Alpha 1 also says that he had tried to take her down, but Rita tells him that more powerful beings have tried and failed. He then tells her that he was built by a father who rejected him, but then Alpha 1 tells her that her father did choose him to be the vessel. Rita begins to scoff as she knows that the robot does not know what it is to be a vessel. She begins to explain to him that Dark Specter wants to go through the Morphin grid but cannot because it is toxic to him. It is for this reason that he is looking for a vessel that will allow him to pass through it, but he will burn the soul of this vessel in the process. He also tells her that Master Vile's love is not worth dying for. Later at the party we can see that they are all gathered to make a toast to the new vessel. Rita and Divatox begin to have a conversation and talk about how foolish Master Vile is for continuing to fail in the search for a new vessel and then acquiring the Zeo crystal. The next day they go to Planet Infernus where Dark Specter is to introduce him to Alpha 1, the new vessel. Rita begins to offer Alpha 1 to work with her and promises to give him freedom. Although this seems like a simple conversation, this moment is key for Alpha 1. They then meet Darkonda and he tells Master Vile how he dares to come back after all his failures looking for a vessel. Master Vile promises him that this time he will not fail and Darkonda asks him if the vessel is Rita, but he tells her that she is an old witch. Rita gets upset and wants to fight Darkonda, but her father stops her. Then, Master Vile apologizes to Darkonda and Darkonda lets him in to see Dark Specter. Here we can see that Dark Specter's soul is in a lava pit, but at the same time he is controlling another body so he can talk. Master Vile proceeds to introduce him to the new vessel and tells him that Alpha 1 is strong, loyal, willing and has no spirit or conscience. Dark Specter gets very angry as he says that a robot is not a proper tribute and proceeds to attack Alpha 1 who is badly damaged. He then tells Master Vile that his patience has come to an end and he is going to finish him off. Rita interrupts Dark Specter and tells him that his father is a fool. She tells him that after he gave her everything, yet her father has only given her failure after failure. It is an insult to his greatness, and he is not worthy of the title Vile. Dark Specter tells her that he knows who she is, that she is a cursed child and not fit to be his vessel. Rita tells him that she is not there to be the vessel, she is there to be the new Vile, which means to be Dark Specter's new general. Master Vile threatens her and then they start fighting. Rita attacks him first, but Master Vile is very powerful and attacks her back. He also tells her that she was never enough and was just a disappointment. Then, the battle and insults continue, and each is very powerful, but Master Vile is winning the battle. When it looks like Master Vile is going to destroy Rita, he is run through with a sword by Alpha 1. Rita then proceeds to take away his memories of that day with her magic, and Alpha 1 is surprised that she could have destroyed him and didn't. Rita replies to him that she is not like her father, and this is why he helped her, because he knows she is not like her father. Dark Specter tells Rita that it is a shame that she was tainted before he brought her before him, as she would make an excellent vessel. Rita tells him that she is not a vessel, she is now Mistress Vile. She then explains to Dark Specter that she was not damaged, she was imbued with the energy of the Morphin grid, and that will help her get the Zeo crystal for him. He also tells her that in addition to this he has a vessel that was a great warrior and he can get it, but he must transform her into his new Vile. Dark Specter agrees, then begins to fill her with great power, and this transforms Rita into Mistress Vile. Now Mistress Vile can feel her new great power, and Dark Specter gives her the order to find the Zeo crystal and not fail her. Mistress Vile and Alpha 1 go to planet Berserk, which is a cold planet that is full of snow. The two begin to have a conversation about how cruel Zordon is for using people for a war that has no end. As they talk, they find the new vessel, which is frozen inside a wall of ice. Mistress Vile says that it is a new tool that will help them take over their new destiny and not to be afraid of it. Back in the present, Rita continues talking to Matt and tells him that she can help him. She tells him that he has been discarded, left behind. She tells him that he is useless, the spare, and asks him if he wants to be enough. She tells him all this as she continues to torture him. We had previously seen the encounter between the Rangers and Alpha 1, which was on another planet along with an Omegazord. Specifically, 5 days before this happened, the Omega Rangers were on the ship called the Wraith No. 2. After several stories, the Omega Rangers have changed and now their members are different. Jason is no longer an Omega Ranger, and that is why Trini is the new Red Omega Ranger. To replace Trini as the Yellow Omega Ranger is now Kever, but Zack and Yale stayed the same. If you want to know this entire story about the Omega Rangers, you should watch the complete Death Ranger story that is in this channel. Continuing with the story, we can see that on the ship is Zack starting to train Kever since it is his first time as a Ranger. Trini is supervising the training, and at the end Kever talks about Journey. She was an alien that Trini and Zack had found, but she had the problem that her growth was accelerated, and her life was very short-lived. They both start talking about her and try to console each other as they miss her a lot, and a very awkward moment arises. Trini tells Zack that he was an excellent father, then he tells her that she shouldn't have turned him down when he asked her out at school. Even though he said this in a sarcastic way, still, they both felt uncomfortable, and then Trini confesses to him that she had gone out with Jason, and they had kissed. This came as a shock to Zack, but Yale, Kever and Eleven interrupt them. Then Eleven warns them that they are going to reach the planet Casentine and that the Omega Rangers are looking for a supposed trace of the Death Ranger. This planet was one of the places where the Morphin Masters used to live, and it is full of Morphin energy. After 5 days, in the present, we can see the exact moment when the mighty Morphin encountered Alpha 1. Kimberly had already faced this robot, but Adam, Rocky and Aisha had never interacted with it. In the command center we can see that Lord Zed is still asleep and Billy is still overseeing Tommy's recovery. They both start talking about how worried they are that Lord Zed is still there, plus how bad Tommy feels about not going with the other Rangers to help them. Alpha 5 is also tired of continuing to babysit the other villains since they eat so much food and it's driving him crazy. Tommy asks Billy about staying there and not helping the other Rangers, but he tells him that he is more useful there in the command center than fighting outside. Tommy thinks Billy doesn't want to be a Ranger anymore, but Billy replies that he loves being a ranger and will continue to be one. On the other planet, the Rangers start fighting Alpha 1, who attacks Kimberly and Rocky first. Alpha says he already knows Kimberly's moves, but Adam tries to beat him since he doesn't know her moves. Then Aisha attacks him, but Alpha pushes them both away and starts using parts of the Omegazord to build himself a new armor. Alpha begins to say that just as he destroyed the Omega Rangers, he is going to destroy them as well. The mighty Morphin are frightened, but Kimberly tells them not to believe him since he is lying and that they must use his moves since Alpha does not know them. Even though Kimberly tried to distract Alpha and then Aisha attacked him from behind, still, his power is too great and the Rangers are losing the battle. At that moment, the blue Omegazord knocks Alpha down and we can see that Trini and Yale arrive to help the mighty Morphin. Despite this, Alpha tries to steal the blue Omegazord's energy, but the mighty Morphin call their Zords to fuse them with the blue Omegazord and give it more power. This combination forms a very powerful Megazord in order to defeat Alpha 1. Even though the mighty Morphin have many questions about how Yale can control a Zord, they all start to destroy Alpha together. After they destroy all of his armor, Trini proceeds to cut off his head, but tells the Rangers that they must leave before he recharges. The other Rangers don't understand how this could be possible, but Trini tells them that Alpha is a robot enhanced with dark magic and he took Kever and Zack to send them to Mistress Vile. The alert about the Death Ranger's presence on that planet was a trap by Alpha to trap the Omega Rangers. At the command center, Lord Zed wakes up, quickly gets up, breaks his bonds and starts walking through the dark corridors of the place. He finally reaches Zordon and Alpha 5, who are very concerned about the situation. Lord Zed tells them that they can be calm since he does not represent a threat to the state of health in which he is and, besides, he is not going to run away from his destiny. On the other planet, Alpha 1's head is rebooting as Trini and Kimberly have a conversation. Trini starts to say that Alpha got there and trapped Kever and Zack for a witch named Mistress Vile. Kimberly tells her that it's Rita and she also has Matt. Trini says that Rita is not on that planet, but the others are there for some reason and they are going to force Alpha 1 to tell them. Elsewhere on that same planet, near the ruins of a Masterforge, are the new Putty Patrollers which have Zack and Kever tied up. These Putty Patrollers are searching for lost objects near that place and are putting them all together near the Rangers' Morpher. The other Rangers arrive to save Zack and Kever, and start destroying the Putty Patrollers. Then in another place we can see Trini and Kimberly trying to burn Alpha's head to torture him and get information out of him. Even though Alpha is a very advanced robot, he is still a rather naive being and starts talking about things he shouldn't say. Within everything he says, he talks about Mistress Vile, about Dark Specter and about finding a navigator. All of this he said by threatening Trini and Kimberly, and not by torture. Then they both ask 11 to take them back and they leave before Alpha tries to attack them. Back on the ship, the Omega Rangers get back together and they all hug as one big team. Then the Rangers start talking about the things the Putty Patrollers were looking for in that place and Zack presents them with something he found next to his morpher. As we see images of Alpha 1 recovering and sending a message to Mistress Vile about his recent failure, 11 begins to explain the significance of the object Zack found. The object is a navigator to tune the Masterforges to specific coordinates within the Morphin grid. Basically it is similar to a GPS and helps to define the path. Then we can see how Tommy and Billy send Lord Zed and the other arrestees in a car to another place. In all this time we can keep reading the message that Alpha 1 was sending to Mistress Vile and told her that due to his short connection with the Omegazord he was able to track the next location of the Rangers, and this time he is not going to fail. On another planet, thousands of years ago, Lord Zed and Rita were fighting. At that time they did not know each other yet. It was the first time they met, and Lord Zed only knew that Rita was a witch sent by Master Vil. He tells her that she is a delusional witch for daring to come to his land, enchant his soldiers, and kill his generals, all in the name of Master Vil. How dare she attack him if he is the Emperor of Evil? At that moment, he also asks her who she is to challenge him, and she answers that she is Rita Repulsa. Even though she is very powerful, Lord Zed is still stronger and attacks her. He then tells her that he accepts that she is very powerful, but that her loyalty to Master Vil weakens her potential and that she should serve him. Rita replies that Master Vil is her father, basically meaning that she cannot betray him. Still, Lord Zed tells her that she is over him and now their future together has just begun. In the present, at the point of eternity in Safe Haven, the Rangers are still trying to understand what the Master's Forge's navigator is. Robot 11 begins to give a very important explanation of what these navigators mean and how they travel through the Morphin grid. First, he says that the Morphin grid is constant, the same in all dimensions and time. It is basically a wholeness, and this is why it is possible to travel through the Morphin grid. However, to travel you must need a mastery of the Morphin grid, and very few have achieved this without a master arch. Every master forge has a master arch, as that is the gateway to the Morphin grid. Anyone who can control this can travel to any place, any time, and any dimension. Despite this benefit, it is very dangerous to travel without a navigator, as you can be left floating in the abyss. The navigator provides an anchor to the master arch, which gives you a way in and out. Many years ago, the Morphin Masters built master arches on many planets that had a strong connection to the Morphin grid. But a malevolent entity was determined to enter this dimension through these portals and sent numerous invasions to these planets. The results were catastrophic. As a last resort, the Morphin Masters withdrew into the grid where Dark Specter could not reach them. They then destroyed all the Masters' arches, and it was assumed that all the navigators were also destroyed, but this obviously did not happen. The Rangers quickly realized that, if Rita is looking for a navigator, then she knows she also needs a master arch, and the only working one in the entire known galaxy is in Safe Haven. Kevin naively thinks that the Omega Rangers can defeat Rita easily since Zack had told him all about Rita, but Zack himself tells him to stop since they also mention something about a certain Dark. Then, a very furious Tommy tries to warn them that Rita is no longer the same and that he doesn't care how powerful the Omega Rangers are, they are not going to be able to defeat Rita alone. He then asks Billy how fast they can get to Safe Haven, but Grace tells him that he can't go anywhere since the Earth is also a place with a lot of Morphin grid energy with ruins of the Master's arches. An argument then forms between everyone, as the Rangers who are on Earth want to travel to Safe Haven and those who are already there want to stay to help the Omega Rangers. Zordon wants the Rangers to stay on Earth and orders the mighty Morphin who are in Safe Haven to return to Earth, as they must protect it. Tommy and Kimberly join in to tell Zordon that they are not going to lose another friend, but he stops the argument and yells at them, saying that enough is enough. He then tells them that he's already given an order and he's going to see that it's carried out. Later, Grace and Zordon have a conversation and she is surprised at Tommy's attitude, but Zordon tells her that he is just scared and doesn't want to lose Matt. He also tells her that even though they are young, they are also soldiers, and he recognizes all that you have to go through to be a ranger. That's why he tries so hard to protect them, but Grace tells him that being a ranger comes with the benefits of trauma and guilt. In the end, she tells him that he's not trying to protect them, he's trying to protect himself because he's filled with fear. Zordon accepts that he is terrified and explains that Rita was infused with Morphin grid energy so that she could not be used by Dark Specter as a vessel, and somehow managed to use this to her own advantage. Now, she has the Zeo crystal, is looking for a navigator and a master arch to bring Dark Specter to this universe. Because of this, all existence is at risk. In Safe Haven, we can see Trini and Kimberly talking about many things since they had not been able to have time for each other. They both start talking about Kimberly staying to help the Omegas and also about Matt and Aisha's possible relationship. Then they both stop the conversation as a fireball passes through the sky that creates a big explosion. It was Alpha 1 arriving with a troop of putty patrollers to challenge the Omega Rangers, but he knew nothing about the mighty Morphin. The purpose of Alpha's arrival was to take back the Navigator, but the Omega Rangers greet him with Omegazords and the battle begins. On Earth, in Promethea, Grace tries to talk to Lord Zed, who begins to say that true warriors know when they have lost the battle, but humans are always optimistic. He also tells her that Mistress Vil has the Zeo crystal, has Vessel, and has been empowered by Dark Specter. Her army is large and deadlier than any, but still the humans think they have a chance to escape total annihilation. Grace tells him that he underestimated humanity and now look where he is. Besides, the Rangers saved his life, and if they all work together, then they have a chance since Lord Zed knows Rita well. Despite this, Lord Zed mocks her since she doesn't work together as a team and says that the Rangers only prolonged her inevitable death. He also says that Rita is a monster, and he showed her mercy many times, but now seeks revenge. He says the world is doomed, but he's going to make sure Rita doesn't survive long enough to see his own victory. Grace tells him that's too much confidence for a guy she almost killed just a few days ago. She then thanks him for Serpentera and tells him they're going to put it to good use. In Safe Haven, the battle continues, and the Omegas have split into two teams. Trini and Zack are fighting Alpha 1, while Kever and Yield try to crush the putty patrollers. Trini tells Zack that it's time, then grabs Alpha and starts carrying him towards another location as he starts telling her that she's not as smart as Billy and should never have been a Red Ranger. Kever and Yield continue to fight the putty patrollers who are very clingy. Alpha 1 manages to escape the red Omegazord's hand and then tries to open it while Trini proves to him that she was always out of the Zord. She calls the mighty Morphin, who arrive with their Zords to destroy all the putty patrollers. Meanwhile, Alpha keeps trying to absorb the power of the Omegazord, but Zack tells her that he put up a firewall and then launches an energy attack on her. Back on Earth at Jason's house, the front doorbell rings and his father asks him to open the door. The person standing in the doorway was Tommy, who started telling Jason everything that was going on. He also tells him everything that happened to Matt and that he feels guilty for inviting him to the fight. Despite this, Jason tries to make him understand that Matt did what he himself would do in that position, sacrifice himself for others. At Promethea, Lord Zed starts talking to a security guard, who thinks he can make fun of him for being locked behind those energy bars. Lord Zed shows him that he is not afraid of pain and that in his life he has been through pain he could never have imagined. He then grabs him by the neck and breaks through the energy bars, ignoring all the pain this causes him. Grace and Torona, who was also a ranger on Zordon's first team, heard the red alert and ran to see what was going on. They both find to their surprise that Lord Zed had escaped and was holding something in his hands. What he had in his hands was a morpher that was originally meant for Rangers but was modified meant for something different. This morpher had Lord Zed's Z on it, and he activated it saying,
"It's Morphin time!"
After Lord Zed became a Ranger, Grace and Torona were confused as they did not know how he had obtained a morpher. Then Lord Zed explains to them that he placed a device in Zordon's command center to drain all his power and steal it for himself. With this he was able to create his own morpher and feels that now no one can stop him. Grace tries to give Torona orders to leave and shut the whole place down, but he doesn't want to leave her alone. She tells him that Zed was the evil emperor before all this, so he is capable of anything. After that, Zed shows them his new power and attacks them both by throwing awesome energy. In Safe Haven, we can see Alpha 1 has been destroyed and Robot 11 has been slowly disarming it. Despite this, Alpha 1 keeps trying to power up his system, but 11 tells him to stop as it will overload his circuits and be harmful to him. Then 11 apologizes to him for having him in that situation, but Alpha tells him that he has nothing to apologize for as he too once had a master that he had to serve. Then 11 tells him that he now has another new master and that it would be wise for them to talk about that new master. Alpha 1 feels this as a threat, so he tells 11 that he does not have the ability to feel fear and that when he is free, he will use his body. Then 11 shows him a new body that can be for him but tells him that they must start with the interrogation. Meanwhile, in another room are Trini and Zack watching everything that 11 is doing with Alpha 1. Trini feels bad about what they are doing as she thinks that even though Alpha is evil, still, he is a conscious being and knows that Zordon would never have allowed that. Zack tells her that Zordon is not there to tell them what to do and made it clear to them that they are on their own side. He also tells Trini that she can't guess, she's the leader for a reason. Trini tells her that red is only a color and that they are both in this together. The two are very close and have a moment of romance which doesn't last long as Zack tells her it's hard to believe in that right now. Trini apologizes to him for not telling him what happened between her and Jason, but Zack tells her that's none of his business. Then Trini asks him, "What if I want it to happen?" At that moment they are both interrupted by Aisha, who tells them that Kimberly is trying to call Tommy, so they are soon to leave. Back on Earth at the juice bar are Tommy and Jason about to fight in training form, and the two are having a conversation before they start. Tommy thanks Jason for taking him along to train and Jason asks him about Kimberly. Tommy tells him that she still hasn't communicated and the last time they spoke she said she wasn't going to apologize. Obviously, this is because Zordon had given them the order to return to Earth and the Rangers stayed in Safe Haven. Tommy then begins to explain to Jason that he feels that he and Kimberly are drifting apart, as Rangers and as a couple. He also tells her that he just wants her to be okay and then asks for Jason's opinion on what he would do. Jason tells her that he is the least likely to give love advice, but he can kick her ass. The two of them begin fighting to spar, but at that moment a huge explosion is heard, and part of the juice bar is destroyed. Tommy starts communicating with Zordon to find out if they were seeing everything that was going on. Alpha 5 tells him it's Mistressville and Tommy asks Zordon if the other Rangers are on their way. Zordon tells him not yet, but that he already alerted Billy to the situation, and he is on his way. Then Tommy tells Zordon that they should know that Mistressville didn't come alone. We can see that she arrived with the Green Ranger, which is Matt, but apparently Mistressville brainwashed him. In Safe Haven we can see Kimberly sitting in a dark place and Yale goes to join her. She starts to vent to him and tells him that Tommy hasn't responded all day and that she hasn't been able to communicate with Zordon and Alpha either. She feels that apparently, she didn't know how to handle this situation well, and maybe she made everything worse by not following Zordon's orders. At that moment, Adam appears and tells Kimberly that she needs to go into the room with the other Rangers as everything is getting crazy. Inside the room, they begin to listen to the conversation Alpha 1 is having with Robot 11. The Rangers say that it is very sinister, and they don't know if Rita programmed it or just filled it with dark magic. Then they start to hear Alpha say that Mistress Vil is going to take Dark out and that Safe Haven is inconsequential. Then 11 asks him why come to Safe Haven if it's inconsequential. Then Alpha replies that Mistress Vil has other priorities, plus she has an infinite army. He also tells her that she is building an army to defeat Zordon and the Rangers. He then tries to talk about the navigator, but 11 tells him that he won't get his hands on the navigator they have in Safe Haven. Alpha tells him that this is not the only navigator within Mistress Vil's reach. With that last message, the Rangers were shocked, as they now know that Rita must be on Earth looking for the other navigator, and they know that Grace possibly has it, as she said they had found the ruins of the Ark. On Earth in Promethea, Lord Zed throws Trona against the wall and lifts Grace by the neck to force her to release Golder and the others. Then Trona returns with the navigator in her hands and asks Zed if he knows what it is. He also tells her that now that he is transformed, he can feel its power. Obviously, Zed knows what it is, so Trona tells him that Mistress Vil is looking for him, so, if he has it, then she will come to him. She also tells him that she is willing to give it to him if he releases Grace. Lord Zed releases Grace, and suddenly another alarm starts going off, and Zed gets upset as he thinks they are trying to kill him with a headache. Trona explains to him that the alarm is because someone broke through the perimeter, and they realize that Mistress Vil has arrived. On Earth, Tommy asks Jason to leave and try to keep the civilians safe, but Jason doesn't want to leave him alone. The Green Ranger tells Jason to leave as it is useless since he just wants to kill Rangers. Remember that Jason no longer has the powers since he gave them up to stay on Earth to take care of his dad. Jason, very angry, tries to attack the Green Ranger, but he hits him very hard. At that moment, Billy arrives, and the first thing he says is to apologize to Matt. At that moment, the Rangers try to Morphin, but Matt says that they are not going to wait and starts the attack. Then Matt confesses to the Rangers that they shouldn't wait for the other Rangers to arrive since Finster cut the command center communicators and Kimberly doesn't know they are in trouble. The Rangers begin the attack. Tommy fights Matt and Billy tries to stop the putty patrollers. Tommy tells Matt that he should fight since he knows he belongs in there, but the new evil Matt scoffs. Billy tells Tommy that maybe by destroying his sword they can free him since it was what freed him when he was the Green Ranger under Rita's spells. At Promethea, Mistress Vil tells Grace to come out and that she knows she is locked up with the navigator since Matt told her everything. The security of the place tries to stop Mistress Vil, but they are unsuccessful. Grace and Trona try to escape, although he tells her that they have security protocols for these cases, but she tells him that, if Mistress Vil knows Matt's thoughts, then nothing is going to help because she knows everything. At that moment, Mistress Vil and Vessel manage to get inside, but Lord Zed greets them by telling her that he had already warned her what would happen if they met again. Mistress Vil starts teasing him by telling him that she likes his new look since she doesn't have to keep seeing his brain. Then Zed tells her that he would have crossed the entire galaxy to get his revenge, but she is such a fool that she came to him. At that moment, she gives the order to Vessel to fight Zed, and he gets very angry as he wanted to fight her. Lord Zed and Vessel start to fight, and the first thing Zed did was to take away his staff. Despite this, Vessel keeps fighting since he carries a sword on his back. In the battle with the Green Ranger, Matt starts saying crazy things to try to make the Rangers angry, and apparently, he is making Billy angry. Because of this, when Matt tries to attack them, Billy kicks him and then tells Matt that he will never leave him again. In Promethea, Grace and Trona are trying to escape, grateful that Lord Zed is keeping Mistress Vil and Vessel busy. They are both thinking about the latest contingency plan, but suddenly they run into Mistress Vil. In the other battle, Billy tries to keep attacking Matt, but Matt says it's game over. We then see that Matt has Billy on his knees with his sword to his neck about to finish him off, but at that moment an arrow pushes Matt's sword away. Kimberly and Aisha had arrived to help Tommy and Billy. Lord Zed hits Vessel so hard that he breaks his helmet. As this battle happens, we can read Aisha's words telling Matt that they know that underneath that dark magic and underneath that helmet is their friend. While she says that, we can see that Vessel shows his face and Zed is very surprised because he sees Zordon's face. Vessel took this opportunity of Zed's carelessness to attack him very hard. In Safe Haven we can still see Alpha 1 talking to 11, and he tells him that while they are struggling to follow Mistress Vil's plans, she has already advanced to the next point. While Alpha 1 keeps talking, saying many things about Mistress Vil's plans, we can see a person walking through the corridors until we get to the vault where they have all the villains imprisoned in jars. Surprisingly, this person is Lord Draken, who freed Kia, who had been a Blue Omega Ranger and had betrayed the team. Several months ago, on the planet Bizerk, Rita and Alpha 1 were searching for the being they had promised Dark Specter to be a vessel. Incredibly, this is the body of Zordon, the same one we have known all our lives, and Alpha 1 is confused since Rita had told him that she had locked him in time. She explains to him that the spell she had cast that day separated Zordon's body, and a friend of hers searched for that body to keep it. She also explains that this body is alive, but only has instincts, like a trophy ready to be used, and she is going to put it to good use. Then, she breaks the ice to free Zordon's body and begins to tell him that his existence has the sole purpose of being the vessel of a very powerful being. In the meantime, she is going to turn him into one of the most powerful beings in the universe and then fill him with dark magic. Now on planet Earth, everyone is under attack by Rita's army, and we can see that Zordon's body, called Vessel, is there too. This army is very powerful, and they are destroying the whole Earth mercilessly. Despite this, we can see that Vessel is still walking with a steady course and is ignoring everything that is happening around him. In the battle we can see that there are several Rangers fighting against Matt, who is also using the Zord. Finally, we can see what fate Vessel was looking for, and somehow, he found it. This powerful being has found a Power Rangers command center, which is supposedly impossible to enter without a power coin. Despite that, this powerful villain manages to open the doors of the command center easily and enters as if he were a guest. Inside the command center we can see that there is Zordon, Alpha 5, Adam and Rocky. Zordon begins to ask the Rangers for an answer since they had not had any communication, and they tell him that he had to fix everything. At that moment, Adam realizes something unexpected. Vessel had managed to get in and they couldn't believe it. They obviously still don't know that this is Zordon's body, so Vessel removes the protection he has on his face and the Rangers can't believe what they are seeing. The battle begins and Vessel quickly attacks the Rangers, but they defend themselves with blasters. Then, they start attacking with their weapons, but Vessel is very powerful and defeats them both easily. Vessel quickly puts his hand inside Alpha 5 to deactivate it with a single blow. After this, Vessel turns to look at Zordon, something that no one was able to prevent him in all this journey, to reach the maximum leader and possibly the missing part of his body. Zordon is very upset and starts asking him a lot of questions, but we can see that Vessel is very calm and walks towards him. Then he simply touches Zordon's energy tube and they enter into a kind of mind meld, just as happened with Lord Zed when he was wounded. They both have separate bodies and are floating in space. Vessel begins to speak for the first time after a long time and says that he is what Zordon could not be. Zordon is obviously very confused and doesn't know how to begin to understand this whole situation. He starts to go over everything Rita did, so he knows he was right in what he thought. He told Vessel that Rita separated him from his body and then locked him up. In addition to this, he also used that whole situation to turn it around and use it to his advantage now. He is now planning to use his body to give it to Dark Specter. All these claims of Zordon were confirmed by Vessel, who also told Zordon that despite all of this the emptiness gnaws at him and he is looking for a better host that will suit this body. Zordon starts yelling at him very angrily and tells him that after invading his home, hurting his rangers and forcing him into that shared consciousness, he basically took his purpose and perverted it. Vessel tries to make it clear to Zordon that the rangers are fine and that he didn't kill them. This is the first sign that Vessel really is different and is out for redemption. Zordon also tries to tell him that while he was adrift, helpless and twisted in time, he was with a steady body. His own body infused with the darkest magic to give to the worst villain. Vessel tells him he wasn't given a choice, but Zordon tells him he wasn't given a choice either. Then Vessel realizes that in this shared consciousness he doesn't need Zordon's permission to access any thought and any emotion, so he begins to travel. He first begins by traveling back to the first Ranger team, which was led by Grace, and several died in that battle against a green Pisco Ranger. Zordon tries to tell everything that happened, but Vessel tells him that Alpha 1 had already told him and that he also told him that Zordon is a leader who sacrifices those in his care. Zordon tries to tell him that that was never his intention and that if he could take his place he would have. Vessel tells him that those are his words, but his inaction has cost many more lives. Vessel takes Zordon to an old battle he had against Rita, and at that time he was accompanied by Zardes. In this battle Zordon had the opportunity to end Rita's life, but he chose not to as he had always thought that everyone can redeem themselves. Vessel tries to question him about this thought of redemption after seeing everything that has happened, and Zordon replies that no one is far from redemption, even him. After this, Vessel takes him back to the moment when the emissaries told him that he will never enter the Morphin grid and then threw him back. Vessel begins to question him about his beliefs since after he sacrificed everything, this is how he was paid. He also tells him that he is weak, useless, a ghost in a tube, and that despite having a lot of power he has wasted it by putting his faith in others. He then makes her an offer and tells her to take his body so they can become one person again. A body full of Morphin grid power which he can reclaim and fix all the mistakes. Despite this, Zordon rejects her offer, telling her that no matter how much he wants to have a body again, he can feel that this body is filled with Rita's dark magic, so he must find his own way. This rejection makes Vessel very angry, who tells Zordon that after offering him a body full of power to save the universe he has sacrificed so much for, so now he's going to say no. Zordon tells him that he can say no too, even he doesn't have to decide between Dark Specter, Rita, or even himself. Then, Vessel tries to go to Zordon and tells him that this is the path he is going to choose. Vessel has fucked his body with Zordon. Then, the shared consciousness ends, and he returns to the real world thinking it's all over, but inside him Zordon tells him it's not. Vessel falls to his knees as Zordon tells him that he made his decision, but I made mine. Zordon begins to show him many positive thoughts and tells him that he accepts that he is weak, but he manages to find his strength in those people and will not hesitate no matter the cost. For all that evil that consumes us, there is always hope, redemption, good, and he will always choose that. Then, Vessel starts to scream as he can't handle all those words Zordon is saying to him and both bodies separate again. Now we can see a very different Vessel and Zordon tells him that now he is free and can choose his own way wisely. At the end Zordon tells him, "May the power protect you." After Draken releases Kia from the confinement inside the bottle in safe haven, she tries to attack him, but is unsuccessful as she no longer has powers. Draken asks her to calm down as he is not the enemy, but she responds by reminding him of everything she lost because of him. Because of this, Draken changes his answer and tells her that he is no longer the enemy. He also tells her that she no longer has her Omega Ranger powers, so she obviously can't fight him, and her best option is to listen to his proposal since he released her because he needs her. After this, Draken takes Kia to a master bow and she thinks he brought her there so she could try to activate it, but she doesn't know how to do it. Still, Draken replies that this is not her purpose, he only brought her there so that she can back him up and help him fight against those who oppose him. At that moment, Kever and Yale, the yellow and blue Omega Rangers, arrive. We should point out that Kia was the blue Omega Ranger and because of this, she gets very angry because she thinks they gave her Morpher to a cat. At that moment, Kia and Draken get ready to fight. The Omega Rangers starts to attack, but Draken and Kia stop them easily. Then the other Omega Rangers arrive and Kia gets mad at Trini for giving her Morpher to a cat. Draken drags Kia into the archway and then tells Trini to destroy that archway before she gets to him. By this, we assume Draken is referring to Rita trying to get Dark Specter. In Promethea, Rita drags Grace to take her away, but she doesn't understand why she's taking her too if she already has what she needs. Rita responds by telling him that she's very cunning and isn't going to take any chances. She then tells him about everything it has cost her to get here and tries to play with his mind by mentioning part of Grace and Zordon's story. At that moment, Rita hears someone coming and thinks it's Vessel, but to her surprise it's Lord Zed. The two begin an exchange of words about Lord Zed's new powers and he also mentions to her how insane it was to use Zordon's body to get Vessel. Rita also tells him that he doesn't know what's coming and that death is going to be mercy. On Earth, the Rangers are still in the middle of the war. Kimberly and Aisha are together trying to communicate with Adam and Rocky, but they were having a battle with Vessel at the time. Then Matt comes up and tells them both that he wants to continue chatting with them, but Kimberly replies that he's just going to tell lies. He then also tells her that they have already fought an evil Green Ranger, so Rita could have been more original. Kimberly starts attacking Matt and even though he tries to discourage her with words, she still knocks him down only to have the Yellow Ranger attack him again. They are both on the floor and she tries to talk her way into his heart. Matt uses this as an advantage and shows her his face, making her believe that he managed to wake up from the spell but takes advantage of Aisha's carelessness to attack her. In Promethea, Rita and Zed are ready to start fighting, so Rita continues with her sarcasm, but Zed doesn't want to listen to her anymore. Lord Zed attacks first and manages to hurt Rita a little, but she's not even worried and still continues with her sarcasm. Both clash with their powers and generate a big explosion that throws them away. Despite this, they continue fighting, while Grace takes advantage of the moment to save the artifact and escape. In the other battle, Matt continues to fight with the Yellow Ranger as he tries to play with her mind by telling her that maybe she has felt inadequate sometime due to being a replacement like him. He then tells her that maybe this is why she likes him. At the end he asks her if he had ever asked her out on a date, if she would accept. She gets very angry and gives him a hard punch that pushes him away, but then she answers the question quietly, so he doesn't hear her and says yes. Matt is very angry and tells her that he is going to pay for hitting him, but at that moment Rocky and Adam arrive. Because of this, Matt decides to transport to the Dragon Zord, and Kimberly tells the Rangers that Tommy has an idea to save Matt from the spell. The Rangers ask the Zords to become the Megazord using the Dragon Zord. Matt doesn't understand what is happening, and we get to watch as the Zords combine to become the Megazord with Matt inside. This causes all the Rangers to now be inside the Megazord along with Matt, which makes it easier for them to take the sword from him and then restrain him. Billy grabs the sword and jumps out of the Megazord so Tommy can use Saba to destroy the sword. As we've said in other videos, Saba is very powerful, so she easily destroys the Green Ranger's sword. At Promethea, Grace seeks out Trona to give her the navigator and then tells her to find a person who can stop Rita. Trona is worried about Grace, but she tells him that he must escape since she is only after her. At that moment, the worst happens. Vessel arrives, and with this the escape attempt is thwarted. In the other part, Lord Zed and Rita continue fighting, and it seems that Lord Zed is starting to defeat Rita even though she keeps her sarcastic attitude, saying that he is not going to defeat her. Zed launches a big attack, but Vessel arrives and stops this attack, which goes back to Zed. Then Rita starts to mock Lord Zed for not being able to get his revenge, but he tells her that he has only postponed. Rita then starts talking to Vessel and asking him about where he was. Vessel doesn't answer her and only shows her that he had caught Grace, so Rita takes this as an answer. She starts talking to Grace and acknowledges that Grace took advantage of the distraction to escape, but unfortunately, today is not the day to give second chances. She then asks Vessel to kill her, but he tells her no. This really surprises Rita, and she asks Vessel to repeat his answer, and he once again tells her no. In the Megazord, the Rangers are still holding Matt, waiting for confirmation from Tommy to find out if he destroyed the sword yet, and then they realize that Matt loses the transformation. The Rangers think they have their friend back, but when Aisha holds out her hand, Matt grabs her tightly by the wrist. He then asks her to step away and then teleports to another location. Meanwhile, Tommy and Billy outside the Megazord start to see all the putty patrollers leave too, and this confuses them a lot. At Safe Haven, Trini starts interrogating Alpha 1 and says something is coming as Draken came through the archway and wants to know why he took Kia. Alpha is surprised as those weren't Rita's orders, so he wants to alert her that Draken is unreliable. Elsewhere, Zack tries to talk to Kever as Kever feels bad about being easily defeated by Draken. Zack tells him that sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, plus he has only been doing this job for a short time. He then tells him not to be curious going into every fight, sometimes fights are going to come his way. As Zack says these words, we can see many ships approaching the planet. The ships begin to approach towards Safe Haven and are full of Rita's soldiers, but what we still don't know is who those soldiers are. Trini suspects something big is coming as Draken had told her to destroy the archway before Rita arrives. This obviously could be a trap for Draken to gain some kind of advantage, but it is a doubt that is very difficult to resolve. No matter what the Rangers do, neither option is not good for them. If they don't destroy the arch, then Rita is going to achieve her goal, but if they destroy the arch, then Draken might have some plan. This exact same thing is what the Omega Rangers are discussing, since Draken entered with Kia through the archway and they don't know why he would want to destroy the only exit door. They are also thinking that Draken might be afraid of what Rita is going to do with the archway, and if Draken is afraid, then something terrible is going to happen. At that moment, the Rangers hear a very loud sound and Robot 11 warns them of a proximity alert. Rita's ships have arrived, and the army began to descend to the planet to begin the invasion. There are many ships that have arrived, which means that this army is huge, and the Rangers are in danger. Robot 11 says that the collision is imminent, and Alpha 1 tells him that he had already warned them that Rita was going to bring an army. The people on the planet try to run for cover and Archon is leading them to help them. Now we can see that part of the army is the Death Ranger, and along with him he has 3 Wild Force Rangers under control. Also, Dane arrived, an old enemy of the Power Rangers, which is accompanied by many putty patrollers. These enemies were very difficult to defeat and are now part of a large army, fighting together to destroy the Rangers. In Promethea, Vessel does not want to obey Rita, which started from his encounter with Zordon, and Rita wants to know what happened. She tells him that he has no choice, he can't say no to her, and asks him who put that idea in his head. Then she asks him if he visited the friend they have in common. Obviously Rita means Zordon, but before Vessel could answer her, she gave him a hard punch in the face. This blow was so strong that it managed to break his protective mask. With this we know that Rita is possibly more powerful than Vessel, and he still has not been able to separate from her control. Then, Rita continues to punish him with her power, makes him suffer, and tells him that he will not say anything. Grace thought she could hope that Vessel would protect her, but now she is very worried about what is happening. On top of this, she has just learned that Vessel's body is Zordon's body, and Rita confirms to her that this was once his body, but they have no soul. Rita explains to him that from the moment that body was awakened it only had the purpose of being a vessel, and now it is not going to turn back. At that moment, Matt tells Rita that he came back, and she replies sarcastically saying that it's a no-brainer. Grace is surprised to see Matt, and Rita tells her that he is now obeying her and that it is because she brought him that he is still breathing. Grace tries to apologize to Matt, but he talks back rudely, telling her not to apologize to him ever. Rita is desperate and feels they are wasting time to start the ritual. She then asks Matt to bring Grace as she possibly wants to see what is going to happen. The Rangers have arrived at Promethea as they managed to track the energy from the Green Ranger's coin there. They are confused as they think Matt couldn't have just disappeared, but Tommy tells them that they should be alert as Matt must be nearby. Then, Lord Zed shows up and tells the Rangers that they are always failing, that they are very predictable, and were late as usual. We can also see that Golder is holding Torona's body, and the Rangers are surprised that Lord Zed now has the powers of a Ranger. Now, the Rangers try to check on Torona's health, while Lord Zed says to consider this a peace offering, but warns them that this is a temporary truce. He also warns them that they will never be able to defeat him with this new transformation. Kimberly tries to challenge him and tells him that if he is as powerful as he says, then why doesn't he eliminate them now? Lord Zed replies that he has other priorities, and they must have them too. He then explains to them that Rita took Grace, Vessel, and the Green Ranger and is going to attack Safe Haven to use the bow, but she is going to fail as he is going to squeeze her neck to her last breath. Kimberly then asks if they are going to let them escape just like that, but this causes an argument between her and Tommy due to him telling her that she is now asking after not wanting to listen to anyone. The other Rangers stop the fight and say they should go to Safe Haven, but Torona tells them not to go to Safe Haven. This really confuses Billy, but Torona tells him that she is not going to Safe Haven since there is more than one arc. Rita traveled to the Bermuda Triangle along with Matt, Grace, and Vessel to find the other arch that Trona mentioned. This arch was fortified and heavily secured with security gates, guards, and codes. Grace starts mentioning all this to Rita to discourage her, but she quickly says that's not a problem and then magically opens the door. Inside the place we can see the arch, which was broken at one end, but at the same time it was held by some tubes that apparently gave it energy. Rita tells Grace that for her to be only human, she is still impressed by her tenacity and that she should celebrate the discovery they made together. Grace is very angry, so she takes the opportunity to see Rita had approached her and punched her in the face hard. She then tells her that this is not a triumph and starts to play with her mind, telling her that she has always been used. She was used by Lord Zed, and she was also used by her father. Obviously, Rita couldn't stay calm with these words and hit Grace hard while telling her to be quiet. After this, she asks the Green Ranger to get her out of his sight. Matt tries to hold her down while telling her that she must survive to see what will happen as Rita wants witnesses, but Grace tells him that she still sees goodness in him and that the young man she knows would never give up so easily. She also tells him that she knows he's going to blame himself for everything that's going to happen, but she wants to let him know that he shouldn't. In Safe Haven, the Omega Rangers are going to face Rita's army, but Kever is worried because he thinks they won't be able to take on so many soldiers. Trini tells him that they are going to do what they always do, protect the innocent, protect the Ark and never give up. It's Morphin time. The battle has begun and Archon joins in to defend the planet. The Death Ranger was going to confront him, but at that moment Trini arrived with her sword and asks Archon to take the people to a safe place. The Death Ranger is surprised now because Trini is the Red Ranger and the last time they had seen each other she was the Yellow Ranger, but she tells him that last time he no longer had a body, so things change. Dane is terrorizing the locals, but Zack arrives to save them and the two start having a conversation about the last time they saw each other. Then, Zack kicks him in the face hard and tells him that the Rangers are going to surprise him. Elsewhere, Kever and Yale are having a tough battle against the Wild Force Rangers, which were controlled by the power of the Death Ranger. Kever was trying to communicate with 11, but for some reason 11 was not responding and we can see that Alpha 1 was ready. At that moment, something unexpected happened. A giant tail hit hard on the ground. It was a new version of Serpentera and Lord Zed was controlling the Zord. Golder asks Lord Zed for permission to let him go and destroy Rita's soldiers. Babu asks to stay inside the Zord to provide moral support, but Lord Zed asks them to shut their mouths and look for Rita. Babu explains to Lord Zed that she is not in Safe Haven. The mighty Morphin Power Rangers are at the same place Rita is, but they can't get in because of all the putty patrollers outside. They then use the power blaster to open the security door and try to find Matt, but are obviously in for a surprise. The Rangers had arrived late. Rita had already started the ritual and was using the Zeo crystals. Vessel was ready to be used and, in the archway, a dark energy can be seen that Rita is calling out. The words that Rita is saying in this ritual are, "And from this infection, I create a way for you to dominate and for all those who fear you to be invaded." The place has been filled with a dark energy, a purple light, and Matt steps in so the Rangers can't interrupt Rita. Dark Specter has arrived, and the darkest hour has begun.